It's Tuesday, the 26th of April 2016. This is Newsroom, Jumbo Africa on SABC News, Channel 404. A very warm welcome as we broadcast live from Auckland Park Studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preslin.
And I'm Renee Vest, and we'll be with you until 12 o'clock today. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Today, we are focusing on the Sports Minister, Fikile Mbalula, who has banned South African Rugby, Cricket SA, Netball SA and Athletics SA, who haven't met their transformation targets from hosting international events.
I've therefore resolved to revoke the privilege of Athletics South Africa, Cricket South Africa, Netball South Africa, and South African Rugby Union to host and bid for any major and mega international tournaments in the Republic of South Africa as a consequence of the aforementioned federation not meeting their own set transformation targets with immediate effect.
Our question of the day is, how do you view the Sports Minister's stance on transformation? I would like to get your thoughts on the matter. You can send it to our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at all your news headlines. President Jacob Zuma concluded his two-day state visit to Iran, and South Africa will soon start to import crude oil from the Islamic State. The African National Congress has pressed charges of high treason against the EFF as a party and its leader Julius Malema at Hillbrow Police Station. And the United States hold primary elections in 5 key states today. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news with Renee, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you, Kendall.
Good morning, Elvis. Good morning, Renee. Good morning to you. Coming up in the sports today at about 10:20 or so.
I've therefore resolved to revoke the privilege of Athletics South Africa.
Now, Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula talks tough on transformation, revoking hosting and bidding rights for 4 of the Big 5 sports federations. All this is Tottenham Hotspur's title hopes in tatters after being held to a draw by West Bromwich Albion at White Hart Lane last night. And Rafael Nadal makes good on his threat and sues the former French sports minister over allegations that he failed the drugs test. As you can see, Fikile Mbalula's utterances on the transformation and their targets has caused quite a ruckus and caused quite a stir. We'll be covering that all over this news bulletin. Now back to the main desk for the news.
Thank you very much, Kendall. President Jacob Zuma has meanwhile concluded his 2-day state visit to Iran. The president said South Africa will soon start to import crude oil from the Islamic State. Trade between both countries has been revived after it plummeted a few years ago following international sanctions against Iran.
As South Africa engages its offshore gas and oil exploration, Iran, with its expertise, could come in handy. Pretoria is considering building an oil refinery.
We have good understanding on the issue of the refineries. As you know, that they are good in dealing with such projects. I don't think there is an issue we discussed that we did not agree.
But the biggest stumbling block since the sanctions is financial transactions. Money can't move from one side to the other.
That was one of the leading items in the discussions, the question of the banking between the two countries and finances. We discussed that quite extensively. And we all realize that without the flows of the finances, it will be very difficult. So it's one of the issues that we think it should lead in terms of it being implemented. There are small issues that we are dealing with arising out of the sanctions, which we believe it's not going to be more than 4 weeks before they are resolved.
With Iran emerging from the dark years of economic isolation, the influx from different countries to make trade deals is perhaps indicative of the economic potential this Middle Eastern country has. Surely, South Africa does not want to be left out. Mswandile Mbeji, SABC News, Tehran, Iran.
The ANC has pressed charges of high treason against the EFF as a party and its leader Julius Malema, at a Hillbrow police station. ANC spokesperson Zizi Kodwa spoke to the media after laying the charges. He said the statements made by Malema in an interview with the Middle Eastern media station are inflammatory and incite violence. EFF Secretary General Godrich Gardia says Malema and the party will defend themselves in court. Gardia was speaking to journalists in Soweto.
To remove a democratically elected government through a barrel of a gun. We think the statements were not just inflammatory, they were not just calling for violence, but we think that SABC must investigate because there are statements against constitution, against democracy, against the law. Just to remove a democratically elected government through undemocratic means is something that we are concerned about as a governing party.
Well, we will hear what the court says, but definitely it's not an incitement of violence. It's a fair political comment in an election mood period. When a country is in an election period, it should be seen in that context. It's a fair political comment.
In news from the U.S. primary elections, Republican rivals Ted Cruz and John Kasich have formed an alliance to stop Donald Trump from winning the party's nomination. They hope their coordinated strategy will allow them to jointly battle the New York businessman.
In this bitter and bruising race for the White House, teamwork is not exactly expected. But in an unusual show of solidarity, Ted Cruz and John Kasich would rather band together than see Trump triumph. That means carving up the map, allowing Cruz to campaign unchallenged by Kasich in Indiana, and in return giving Kasich a free run at New Mexico and Oregon. Wow. But this is more about maths than resources. Trump needs the magic number of 1,237, the number of delegates he needs across all the US states to win the Republican nomination outright. Failing to get there forces a contested convention, where delegates could pick any of the candidates, a scenario Cruz and Kasich are hoping for, as it could be their only ticket to the White House. Trump, never known for keeping quiet, accused his competitors of collusion and desperation. Trump is on track for another big delegate haul in Tuesday's Northeast primaries. This joint Cruz-Kasich strategy could slow him down, but it also seems to be an acknowledgement that alone, neither of them can beat Trump, and it could still be too little, too late. Tuesday's results are likely to push Trump a step closer to leading the Republicans in November's general election. Nick Harper, SABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is hoping to sweep all 5 primary contests. However, Bernie Sanders continues to challenge and slow her progress towards the Democratic nomination to run for the White House.
Bernie Sanders' surprisingly successful run for the White House may end just a short distance from where it started. That short distance from Capitol Hill is Maryland, one of 5 states holding primary elections, and it's where Hillary Clinton is in the lead. But this is unlikely to be the end of his influence in the Democratic Party. Ahead of the 5 primary contests, Hillary Clinton has been trying to recast her image.
America is stronger when we are all supporting one another.
She's also been turning her attention to the upcoming general election campaign, floating ideas of who might run with her on the Democratic Party ticket, including the following senators: Sherrod Brown of Ohio, Tim Kaine of Virginia, or even another woman, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Following the votes in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland, the next challenge for the likely Democratic Party nominee, Hillary Clinton, is the fact that more American voters dislike her than like her. Priscilla Huff, SABC News, Washington.
That's your top news stories for now, but Alvis, it's over to you.
Thank you, Renee. Now, as you know, we focus today on a different question from our theme. Our theme story is about unemployment today, and unemployment in South Africa, black and coloured youths who are poor, hungry and unemployed. But the focus today that we want to ask you, so it's about transformation and what the Minister had said yesterday, that 4 sporting codes will not be able to be for any sporting activities in the country, that's major sporting activities in the country, unless, of course, they change their stance on transformation. So we'd like to find out from you, what do you think of the Sports Minister's comments and his stance on transformation? We'd like to get your thoughts on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. But you can also let us know what's your thoughts on unemployment, because these are shocking statistics. Youth unemployment in South Africa has reached critical proportions. It was measured at 53.6% in 2013, and in 2014, youth comprised 41.8% of the total national unemployment rate of 25.4%. Now, it also says that black and coloured youths are poor, hungry and unemployed. This is according to that study conducted by Statistics South Africa between 2009 and 2014. We want to see if the Statistician General is up and running on our Skype line, because we had some problems. Let's see if the Statistician General is there. Mr. Lehohla, good morning to you and welcome, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you, but they say somebody, well, they've stopped the cleaning here in Paris in an office here, yes.
Okay.
I can hear you.
So maybe you should speak French to me. Bonjour, monsieur. Let's start off there.
Bonjour, monsieur. Comment ça va?
Ça va. Now, Statistician General, you are in Paris, but we would like to talk to you about the stats that came out a couple of weeks ago to unpack that study for us. The question that we pose, the first one is, the future, what is it? It doesn't look so bright for black and coloured youth in the country. Can you please unpack that study for us and what you have found?
Well, what the study does is to give information from 2009 to 2014, but we also have looked at 1994 to 2014 as well, to look at a time series. And both are not telling a promising tale for those who are 15 to 34 amongst the black and the colored community. It tells completely different story amongst Indians and the whites. So the story for blacks and coloreds is that indeed they are hungry, they are uneducated, they are unemployed, they are more likely to be perpetrators or victims of violence. This is the state in which these people are. It shows a discontinuity between those who are 0 to 14 and those who are 34 and above. And begs the question, which is a very crucial question, and a development question, as to whether there is a demographic dividend. The answer is there is not. And once the demographic dividend post the demographic transition is lost, it suggests that there is a lot more effort and energy, extraordinary, required to either correct the situation or to ensure that those who are 0 to 14 don't fall in the same trap that those who are 15 to 34 have fallen into. Now, the current trends suggest that that sustains.
Now, Mr. Lehohla, you also said it is far more easier for white and Indian youth to finish their studies and to find employment as compared to their counterparts, which are coloured and Africans. Why is that so?
Well, let's qualify that. It's far easier for qualified, that is, with tertiary education, whites to find jobs. It takes twice the effort for blacks to do so. But as a group, those who have qualifications such as tertiary have a much lower unemployment rate. So while that might be a factor of by race shows the disparities, generally as a group, those who have tertiary education have much lower unemployment rates. So to a less extent is the racial determinants of employment. It is more whether you have tertiary or not. So we must make that distinction so that we don't run into a trap on an important issue of whether racism persists in the workplace, but we don't exaggerate it over and above that tertiary education for blacks and coloreds is a very necessary condition for those who are 15 to 34 to get out of this sorry state.
Now, is this problem not also maybe linked to the fact that most black black youth and colored youth are from dysfunctional families or grow up without their fathers?
Well, not one wouldn't like to put a lot of emphasis of whether there is a father or not a father. It is fathering. It's an easy thing. Everybody can be a father, but whether they have parents. And parenting is a different matter. I mean, you don't need to father to be a parent. It's care to those who are the young. In the African tradition, you didn't need to father to be a parent. Unfortunately, that tradition is gone. So parenting is an important thing. And what we see in South Africa, it's 60% of the fathers say they are married, against 30% of the mothers who say they are married. So that suggests a very dysfunctional kind of relationship between children and parents, and between how they actually then get taken care of. And former President Nelson Mandela releasing receiving the results of 1996 census makes a very important observation that what do you expect a child who is brought up by a parent or father or mother who has not seen the inside of a school? And he puts this against whites, where a child has a room reserved for them, where they have parents who actually take care of them. And this is the critical difference and perceptive difference that our former President Mandela makes in relation to how South Africa had to go forward. Unfortunately, we have gone forward, but very little for those who are 15 to 34.
In conclusion, sir, there's also another problem that the students, black and colored students, don't complete their studies in time, or they don't complete them at all. That's another challenge. But does the study then conclude with any recommendations to turn this entire trend, this disturbing trend, around?
Well, unfortunately, you know, we are just statisticians. We collect the data. Those who have to turn the trend around are those who are in policy. But let's pretend that we are thinking about these things very deeply. If we are to think about them deeply, certainly we have to have a process where the education system and the funding system is much more transparent. At the moment, it's opaque. And it has a lot of discontinuities. You get money for food, you don't get money for books. You get money for boarding, you don't get money for tuition. So all these things are very important. Also, I think we have to think very deeply about our education model, particularly where you have to be in an environment where you have to board. Boarding is very expensive, and boarding is about sleeping. With technology, we have to think differently around the use of technology. Obviously, we know that UNISA students don't complete as quickly as they should, but I think with technology, UNISA has shown that it is possible to reduce the cost of education, particularly that component which has to do with where you sleep, that hotel part of it. So we need to think very, very seriously about access to education and think very broadly about how boarding doesn't become an inhibition to access to education and higher education, while at the same time you bring the gregarious nature of education where people have to come together. Because part of education is being gregarious and learning together as a cohort of youth. How do we mitigate that? Which, of course, current university practice facilitates. How does technology then facilitate that gregarious elements of learning?
Statistician General, thank you so much for your time, and au revoir.
Merci beaucoup.
That was live via Skype, the Statistician General Mpali Lerochla from the capital of France, in Paris. He's enjoying himself there. I hope he has a fantastic take there in France. Now, youth unemployment in South Africa has reached critical proportions. It is measured at 53.6% in 2013, and in 2014, youth comprised 41.8% of the total national unemployment rate of 25.4%. 41%. Now, socioeconomic inequalities and inadequate education are but two factors that drive such high unemployment rates. Now, to talk to us more on youth unemployment and what NGOs such as the South African Institute of International Affairs, also known as SAHIA, are doing to help curb youth unemployment, we are joined here in studio by Kenneth Diole. Now, Diole is also part of the South African of SAHIA's youth program and the Youth Policy Committee. Kenneth, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, you heard the Statistician General. These are some very disturbing trends. According to that study that they have found, that conducted by Stats SA between 2009 and 2014, black and coloured students are starving, they are hungry, they're poor, they're unemployed. Now, what is the cause, do you think, of this particular trend? Because you are working with the youth.
I think fundamentally we need to look at the fact that in South Africa, 51.5% of South Africa's population is under the age of 25. And part of what I do at South African Institute of International Affairs, I work within the youth development sector of the parts. And we do a lot of work with a lot of high school and university students. So our target group is between the age of 14 and the age of 25, right? And part and parcel of what we do there is that we do 3 particular programs, and probably let me give them to you and then explain how through it we can contribute to youth unemployment, or the decrease of youth unemployment rather. The first one is that we have programmatic issues, which is programmatic programs that we do throughout the year. The first one being Model United Nations Debating. And that is a simulation of the United Nations. But we are not strictly limited to the United Nations. Just last week we had the simulation of SADC on water scarcity. And we do, the second program also is the Environmental Sustainability Project, which is a research-based project. And then the third one is MinQuiz, which is a quiz of international relations that's testing the knowledge of our young people. That one is currently exclusively within the Western Cape, and actually one of the events is taking place tonight. And part of what we do there is that in the process of participating within these various programs that we offer, our young people therefore get skills within research. They understand the international relations through an African perspective. They volunteer, they have tutors. And I think what is also important is that we have young people who compromise the very demographic divide of South Africa. So we have schools that are from Orlando West, for example. We have Rudine. We have various participants who are from different classes. You understand? So the demographic divide as well as the class are well represented within the work that we do. And I think what we have seen, the significance of the work is that the student learn critical skills that we don't often get within the classroom or within high school. Your writing skills, basic writing of a CV, of writing as a motivational letter or so. And that's some of the things that we work on. We do substantive research. And part and parcel of our learners, for example, I was given last year in COP21, we have a youth delegate. She was part of the official youth delegation of South Africa. Why? Because she has been part and parcel of the program since 2011 when we had COP17. And therefore she was equipped with the necessary skills to know what happens within the COP process and what climate change is and the various factors around the COP conferences. And through her process, at the young age of only 21, she could be so equipped with the various skills that we offer and with also the research that she does, that she could contribute substantively to an international forum like that.
So are you of the view then that research can contribute in bringing down unemployment in terms of the youth?
Definitely. I think, you know, when you speak of unemployment in South Africa, I think we always have a narrow-minded perspective of how to solve it. You know, I think the current conversation is mainly around entrepreneurship, and that's quite great. But also we have to look at the fact that the entrepreneurship activity barometer currently says South Africa's entrepreneurship activity is at 7%. Exactly. The African average is at 27%. So there's a huge discrepancy against that. And I think maybe we should also start to look at what are the various aspects that we can also contribute to the reducing of unemployment. And I think what we do, part and parcel of what we do is that we ensure that through research, for example, they will understand not only what we are talking about or the issues that we're engaging on, but they will also be able to see various other elements of where they can actually go, the various sectors that we do. You know, we work with various entities. In March, it was Human Rights Month, and we had a collaboration with the Gauteng government on the Sports, Arts and Recreation one, where we did various projects with them. We have done things with the Canadian government. And obviously, we're looking for other partnerships as well, because these partnerships allow us to also diversify the different platforms where our young people can get engaged from high school and university as well.
Talk to me about numbers. How many youth do you involve in these programs, and can they really assist in bringing down those youth unemployment figures?
I think, in terms of last year's statistic, basically, we reached about 5,000 young people across South Africa, and we have been mainly working within Gauteng, KZN, Western Cape, and parts of Mpumalanga, and now we have an interest from like your Limpopo and your Northwest schools that are coming in, and from various other projects, but obviously we're limited by resources. Yes. But the aim also, obviously, is that it's not only about just ensuring that we reach out to a large number of people, because we also want to ensure that those that we reach out have substance, they have something that they can actually work with, because part and parcel is that if we just look at reaching out a great number of people, but we're not giving them any skills that they can actually use, it is not of any benefit to ourselves and to them, you understand? And I think that is quite important that we look at that aspect and we say, you know, how many young people can we reach, but how can they contribute substantively, and what will they gain, you know, besides for the writing, besides for the research, besides for understanding the global agenda, because I think we should never just focus on the domestic issues. I think South Africa is at a pivotal position now where it's a strategic partner within BRICS, it's a leader within Africa, and it plays various leadership roles within the global community. Last year we were chairing the G77 plus China. So it's important that our young people know about these very multinational platforms that South Africa is part and parcel of, and how can they contribute to those platforms, and how can they eventually get there. And I think that's one of the things that in the work that we do, we have young people who are coming in from high school level and at university level who are seeing these various opportunities from the norm, and they start to develop an interest there and potentially get involved if they find it.
So how can they get involved with SAHIA?
Definitely. First and foremost, I think easiest is to email us at youth@SAHIA. So it's youth@SAHIA, SAIIA.org.za, or go on our website, www.saya.org.za, and go under the youth link. There's various links there where you can sign up as a youth participation, and even schools, youth registration, they can register. But obviously most of our deadline are coming up in May and June, so that if they were still interested in terms of the work, they should do so very quickly.
Kenneth, thank you so much for joining us here in studio. And that was Kenneth Diole. He's a member of the Youth Committee at the South African Institute of International Affairs. And we're talking about unemployment and youth unemployment specifically in the country. And you can add your voice to the conversation on that topic, as well as on the question that we pose to you. But every forum is to complain to the international sports bodies about the Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula's ban on SA Rugby, Cricket SA, Netball SA and Athletics SA for hosting international events. Now, the party was reacting after Mbalula yesterday withdrew the right of the 4 sports governing bodies to host major events in South Africa, citing their failure to reach their transformation targets. Now, remember, you can send it to on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Let me take a look at what you have to say. This one from Kia says, what Mbalula wants should be done gradually since the first time he mentioned it, says Kia Tlapi. This one from Barend de Arend says, for Fikile Mbalula, here's an idea. In the spirit of sportsmanship, why don't we pick the best players for the job? Barend, that one has been mooted a number of times since the beginning of the era of transformation, and nothing has been done. Sasso says Mbalula and them can't be here acting all righteous like they are doing anything to improve sports in black schools, says Sasso. This one from the Easy Ed says Minister Mbalula was even lenient by just banning the bidding. He should have banned their total participation in big tournament once, says the Easy Ed. Very strong about that one. Akona says, I have mixed feelings with Fikile Mbalula's drastic decision. I think he should start by looking at township sport first. That's Akona. And these are some of your comments. You can keep them coming right here on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. You can also like us on the Facebook page. If you like us there, you become part and parcel of the Informed on Newsroom, your favorite program and channel on Channel 404. Let's now take a look at what's happening in the news today. And we start off in the Eastern Cape, where the Deputy Mayor and a mayoral committee member at OR Tambo District Municipality in the Eastern Cape will make formal bail applications on charges of murder and conspiracy to commit murder today. Tandakila Sabisa, Lawrence Mambila and 2 other suspects will appear in the Tolo Magistrates Court. On to Port Elizabeth then. 2 circus owners and an employee from the well-known Brian Boswell Circus will be back in the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court today on animal cruelty charges. Jane Boswell, her daughter and elephant handler David Marias are facing a string of charges relating to the contravention of the Animal Protection Act. Now, these are some of your stories. We'll keep you updated on these cases throughout the week, so stay tuned on your favorite channel, right here on Channel 404. Let's now take a look at the front pages of the newspapers from around the globe. And we start off in New York. The Wall Street Journal reports that Donald Trump is poised to sweep 5 states. Republican primaries on the eastern seaboard today. But his rivals are already looking ahead to next week's contest in Indiana, which may be their last chance to keep Trump from clinching the party's presidential nomination. Moving to Iran, the Tehran Times says in a meeting yesterday with members of the High Council of the Center for the Islamic Iranian Model of Progress, the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, has said that the main goal of the Islamic Revolution is the realization of the Islamic civilization. And then finally, in the United Kingdom, The Guardian reports that more than £25 million was paid out from BHS to its owner Retail Acquisitions in the 13 months between the department store sales and its collapse into administration. Well, there you have it. Those are all the headlines from papers around the globe. We will take a short break and we'll be right back after that.
Technology isn't all scary. There's also fun stuff like gaming.
Lots of women do play games, whether it's on their phones or their tablets.
Then there are Africans who are using new tools to make other people's lives much easier.
We typed the whole CV on a small, QWERTY Nokia phone.
For all these and other technology and social media news, join me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC News.
Welcome back. Our theme for today is unemployment, youth unemployment specifically. But the South Africa state of school system is facing a major shake-up as it seeks to divide pupils into 3 streams: academic, technical, occupational, and technical vocational. Now, the department says that the pupils will be channeled into one of the 3 streams based on their strengths and weaknesses. Now, for more on the story, in our studio, we are joined by Dr. Moses Simelane, Director from the Department of Basic Education. Doctor, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning to you, sir.
First and foremostly, what motivated this thought in terms of categorizing students into 3 streams?
Well, this comes from one of the policies of education, from White Paper on Education. Which was promulgated in 1996. And again, it is also inspired by the provisions within the National Development Plan, which is setting targets for higher education institutions to produce artisans on an annual basis. For instance, the target for 2014 was that higher education institutions needed to produce 10,000 artisans a year, so that by 2030, they should produce about 30,000 artisans per year. And this is also inspired by the fact that there is unemployment rate is very high. For instance, there is research that suggests that youth estimated to about 3 million, not in education, not in employment, and not in training. So they are roaming the streets. Basically those are some of the rationales.
Looking at the numbers, it would suggest that we have a shortage of artisans in the country. So that would conclude that we need more, and we need more artisans in the country. But what are the differences between these three tiers in terms of the educational formation of those tiers?
Well, in terms of the educational formation, I think the difference basically is that we currently, up to 2015, in the basic education system, the curriculum has been purely academic, which then throws out a number of learners because they can't relate with an academic curriculum and therefore can't cope with the demands of an academic curriculum, even also based on interest and aptitude, you know, and therefore it's been a very limiting curriculum, because research has it that population is kind of split in a 60-40 kind of split, whereby the 40 can afford to pursue an academic career into research, universities and all of that, and then the 60% actually is the kind of population that can thrive within a skills-based curriculum and pursue vocational lines.
Are we then not marginalizing the 60% by providing a change in terms of the system?
We actually are opening up the opportunities for the 60%, the estimated 60%, to be able to choose a career path that will suit their aptitudes and interests and of course their needs. Because all along they have been marginalized by the system only offering an academic curriculum. So therefore, with the three-tier kind of curriculum that we're bringing, which we call the three-stream model, we're opening up opportunities so that almost every learner in the system can relate to the kind of education or curriculum that is packaged to an extent that they can make meaning out of it.
When will this now kick in, Doctor?
The plan is to actually do the pilot, because we have written 26 subjects already in the skills and vocational program. It's going to be a 4-year program starting from an equivalence of grade 6 to grade 9. At the end of grade 9, the learners will be certificated in recognition of the skills that they would have acquired. So next year in 2017, we are planning to pilot in 58 schools of skill, schools that we call schools of skill, which have got workshops and other resources. So we'll do the pilot to strengthen the curriculum development so that by 2018, then it's going to be a full rollout.
Will this assist in the scourge that we currently have in terms of youth unemployment in the country, you think?
Most definitely.
And how so?
Well, in the sense that, one, I think as a country we do a lot of skills import.
Correct.
If you may think back to the days before the World Cup, in South Africa, there were a lot of skills, artisans who were imported from overseas to come and do infrastructure development in our own country because we are short of the skills. Secondly, the issue of unemployment. I think Dr. Lihutla has actually mentioned that youth unemployment is standing at about 41%. So it's basically to try and address those social ills by making sure that the kind of education is of quality and it can provide them with opportunities. Because even after the first certification, which will be at the equivalence of grade 9, some of the learners can actually go to a place of work because they will be certificated and they can even work as assistant artisans, you know, because they won't be fully qualified as artisans to be able to carry out the practice.
What would you say to those dissident voices that would indicate that perhaps you are putting an agenda on the table that is marginalizing the poor blacks and the poor coloreds. Like we indicated, there's so many of them that can't get unemployment, and perpetrating this even going forward into with our new dispensation in democracy.
Well, I wouldn't think that it's further marginalization of the black and the colored community. I think we need to always be mindful of where we are coming from as a country. I think there is an issue of a legacy of the past whereby we had different departments of education which were actually organized along racial lines. And therefore the issue of resources to resource the education of the previously disadvantaged communities actually took a second stage. It wasn't quite prioritized as opposed to the white community, where schools are actually given more resources.
Doctor, I thank you so much for your contribution and coming into studio this morning. That was Dr. Similani from the Department of Basic Education. And of course, looking at that, that indication that working towards the National Development Plan, we need the skills, we need the artisans. Where are we going to find them? We don't have to import them. We have them right here. We have to train them. We need to make sure that they get skilled and employed. That is the message. Now, in response to the announcement by the Sports Minister yesterday, cricketer Jacques Kallis has expressed his disappointment, saying that he's embarrassed to call himself a South African. Now, remember that you can send us your comments at SABC Newsroom. That is the Twitter handle, as well as on the Facebook page. There's the question: how do you view the Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula's stance on transformation in sports? Let me take a look at your comments quickly on the Twitter handle. Freddie Diaz says, hashtag Jacques Kallis. All the haters have a huge chip on their shoulders. They want to play for the Protea. You have to be a good cricketer. That's it, says Freddie Diaz. Okomolsila says, so Jacques Kallis was happy when he used to play for the Proteas in a lily white team. He must now sit down and enjoy pension at Mbalula. Fikile is right. This one from Tatu says, Jacques Kallis, I am also embarrassed that you are a South African. Well, some very strong views that we have here. This one from Straight Outta Tembisa. In fact, this one from Party says, maybe there should be a debate on criminalizing racism. Not only is poverty an economic hindrance, but racism as well. Hashtag Jacques Kallis, that one from Party there. Some very strong comments on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. You can keep them coming, and we'll read them as we continue. Our theme today is on youth unemployment. And more South African families are getting poorer as the household's real net wealth decreased significantly in 2015. Momentum and UNISA estimates that real household net wealth decreased by just over 6 billion rand in the fourth quarter of 2015. This is 45.1 billion rand lower than the year before in the fourth quarter of 2014. Now, for more on the report in studio, we are joined by Frank Makwekwe. He is the segment CEO of Momentum Retail. Mr. Makwekwe, very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Good morning, Owens. Thank you for having me on your show.
First and foremost, talk to me about this wealth decline of the families. What does it mean for the ordinary man in the street?
Ultimately, it means that the ordinary man has to tighten their belt. The economy is difficult. If you look at cost of living in general, expenses are going up. We've seen the petrol prices, fresh produce. Therefore, one needs to be very careful about how much money is coming into the household and how much am I spending. And I would hasten to add that even look at a 2-year period. It's going to be difficult this year. It's also going to be difficult next year. So tightening the belt would be my message at a high level.
Well, some would suggest that that belt, there's not even any more lines to tighten that belt anymore. There's no more loopholes there. You know, you can't even jump that. This, in totality, let me just look at the numbers, means that the number of poor families are increasing in the country across the board. Or does it mean something else?
No, it does mean that. Let's just talk about wealth first. What is the concept of wealth? So what we're saying with our partnership with the UNISA Momentum is that if you look at households, you look at 2013 going to 2015 now, we have seen two key themes.
Yes.
The first theme that you're touching on is that assets, that is shares, that is money, that is property, have declined in value. And liabilities, in other words, buying houses, buying cars, buying household goods on credit, that has gone up. So at a net basis, households are certainly going backwards, especially if we take inflation into account.
Does this also indicate that fatherless homes even contribute to this further because there's no income from the father?
Definitely, it would just mean that if you look at a household again, a household with two incomes certainly doing much better than a household with only one income in general. And it talks to your theme, because your theme is obviously education, unemployment, without a doubt. There is a strong correlation between your education, unemployment, and wealth ultimately.
Is there a particular issue that is causing this wealth decrease in the country, or is it just because we're finding ourselves in a very difficult period or in economic space?
I think there are three issues for me, Elvis. The first one is generally the economy being tough and people losing jobs. When people lose jobs, it affects household income, firstly. Secondly, and probably most importantly, is that the economy generally, not only South Africa, but globally, has slowed down. GDP growth for South Africa forecasted to be only 0.9 for this year, and we'll be lucky even next year to get 2%. So there's a general slowdown. Companies are making less money because the economy is a little bit tough. Interest rates are going up. But more importantly, I want to add a third one. That is, we as consumers, we're in control of it. And that for me, Elvis, is financial education. Simply saying, on average, many consumers don't know how to budget, don't know the impact of buying household goods, of buying clothing, of buying cars on credit. Just the fact that interest rates are going up, it means I have to pay more over time. The idea that every household must strive to have a little bit of money that they put aside for emergencies. That, in financial planning terms, we call it an emergency fund. So there's a huge need to help consumers grasp better how to manage their money, if I can put it that simply.
Financial education is always problematic in South African households, but how does one then start to put that budget together?
You know, Elvis, a budget is actually quite simple because it's simply a spending plan. It's simply saying to you as a household, how much money is coming into the household, how much money is going out. Document it. So in other words, how much is rent, how much is food, how much is transport. Then once you start doing that, you start seeing areas that you could cut down, such as maybe eating out, such as entertainment, such as alcohol, for example, such as buying branded goods. So it really just starts with that knowledge of understanding how much does it cost us to run this household, how much is coming in, and how do we balance the books, so to speak, in the household.
Now, the report also suggests that with the declining wealth, a number of middle-class income groups and, of course, people from the poor will now turn towards government for assistance. What do you make of that?
That is a challenge because the government in its own, as we state, is stretched. If we just look at social grants, for example, already there is more people who need a lot of help from the government. And therefore, one of the biggest challenges, Elvis, of declining household wealth is that people don't save enough for retirement, which means over time, I'm going to need the government to help me with retirement as opposed to putting money aside for retirement myself.
Yes.
And definitely that is something that we don't want on an already overstretched government.
Mr. Makwekwe, thank you so much for joining us. That was Frank Makwekwe, the segment CEO from Momentum Retail. Would like to get your thoughts on that as well. What do you think about youth unemployment? And of course, your wealth is declining, people. If you're South African and you're out there, there you have it. Your net wealth is coming down. You're spending more and you're earning less. Let's take a look at your Facebook page, at our Facebook page, and what you can find there. You can find more on the SABC Newsroom Facebook page, where AfriForum is to complain to the international sports bodies about Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula's ban on 4 sporting governing bodies. Then the United Nations has confirmed that it is trying to facilitate the return of South Sudanese opposition leader Riek Machar to the country's capital, Juba. And President Barack Obama yesterday announced the biggest expansion of U.S. ground troops in Syria since its civil war began. Now, those are all the stories that you can find on our Facebook page. You just type in Newsroom, you find today's date or even yesterday's date or whatever program you're looking for. Go on there and you'll find the programs all relating to our program Newsroom. This is your favorite channel on Channel 404. Now, unemployment is a major talking point in South Africa, and even this morning here on this show, according to statistics, 32.7% of young people are unemployed. And as many as 55% of young people who are actively looking for jobs have education levels below matric. We heard that earlier. There's now going to be 3 tiers, while an additional 36.4% only have a matric qualification. Now, race and geography continue to determine who between the ages of 15 and 34 is employed. Now, to further discuss this, we are joined in studio by the Head of Marketing and Development at Africa Ticum, Onye Nwaneri.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming through and joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First and foremostly, Onye, what do you make of the latest findings by the report that, you can see this unemployment that is escalating in South Africa? It's getting worse.
Yeah, I think that's what our experience is in terms of what we see in communities. We already know that majority of the people that join our youth skills development programs are young people between age 18 to 24. So what the stats is telling us is not new to us because that's what we experience on the ground.
Now tell us about your organization and the programs that you have to maybe alleviate the unemployment rate in the country.
Africa Ticum was started in 1994 by a group of business people who wanted to be part of the change that was happening during 1994. Fast forward 22 years later, Africa Ticum has experienced a lot more problems, particularly youth unemployment that affect young people that are within rural areas and township environments. Our programs are focused on developing young people from cradle to career. Our vision is a future where today's young people are tomorrow's productive citizens. Therefore, we are interested in giving young people the necessary tools and opportunities that will give young people the ability to be able to access the economy. So we don't just look at education, we look at career guidance and career development, we look at nutrition and the family environment of the child or the young person, but we ultimately look at skilling the young person to become employable so that we can help them to access the economy through accessing employment, job opportunities, or opportunities through different programs that government run.
Give me a practical example.
Let me give you a practical example. We recognize, for example, that young people often drop out by grade 10.
Yes.
And we realize that the reason why they drop out, and you see the statistics is showing that majority of them, 55% of them don't have matric.
Yes.
We recognize that because, one, it's not just about getting them to high school. It's about making sure that they choose the right career fields that suit their personality type, their thinking style, and their aptitude. So we often find that young people by grade 8 and 9 all the way to grade 10 make subject choices just because their mother wants them to be a doctor or a lawyer, and they have no aptitude whatsoever in relation to those subject choices.
Yeah.
By grade 10, when the going gets tough, they drop out because they can't cope with those subject choices. So Africa Ticum's job, apart from its cradle to career model, is to get young people into various career guidance programs like Discover Your Career, Discover Your Strength, Discover Your 5 options after school. And the essence of those career programs is, one, to test the aptitude of the child, to test their personality, to test their thinking style, but then to link it to career fields that speak to those strengths. And then also, once we have determined what career fields, tell them what options in terms of subject choices that will help them to get to those careers, but then afterwards support them. As a result of our efforts, in relation to this, we have seen our matric pass rates grow astronomically. Over the last 7 years, we have grown from less than 50% matric pass rate to now over 94%. We dropped this year. Last year was 99%. This year we have 94% matric pass rate, plus over 79 distinctions, 80 distinctions, with some children from Orange Farm finishing with 6 distinctions, 7 distinctions. And you'll be shocked because in the past, many of those beneficiaries weren't. But also, the great thing about Africa Ticum is that we understand that 70% of young people that write matric cannot access tertiary education because of capacity. The varsities can only accommodate so much. The bursaries are only so much. So what we do as Africa Ticum is that we run a further program post-matric called our Youth Skills Development and Placement Program. And the focus of that program really is to, one, make sure that the young person who has come through our programs or our community centers across South Africa, one, understands what the world of work expects from them, has at least one skill, for example, a computer skill or another skill that they can use to access the world of work, and they understand how to package themselves for the world of work, but more importantly, creating a bridge between themselves and the world of work. So we do advocacy into companies, and we help to place them into opportunities in companies. To date, over the last 1 or 2 years, we have placed over 500 young people into jobs because we recognize that a child sitting in Deep Blue, sitting in Orange Farm, does not really understand how to get from Orange Farm to Santin and to get a job. And so that access is what we also help them with.
Talking about access, and very briefly, we've run out of time. How do people get hold of you if they do need to get into your program?
If you want to come to our program, you can go to our website, www.africatikun.org, or alternatively, you can also call us on 011-325-5914. May I also use this opportunity to invite everyone. We're having a big program on tomorrow on Freedom Day, where we're inviting all young people to come and discuss race, privilege, and the legacy of Nelson Mandela. We think it's an exciting opportunity for young people to have a voice around the issues that have plagued us as a country, as a nation over the last 4 months. And we're trying to have young people to speak about race, what it means to them, how it has marginalized them, and how they can shape the future going forward.
Let me also take that opportunity to invite you to this program, because we're talking about the same thing in the morning. Yes. Onye, thank you so much for joining us here in studio. That was Onye Nwaneri. She is the head of marketing and development at Africa Tikun.
Thank you very much.
Now, join in the conversation. You can do so all the time. Right now, let's take a break, and we'll be right back after that.
million more Africans are getting smartphones.
You've got 150 million people using mobile devices in this country.
This means internet connectivity is increasing. That results in access to information. Some are using social media to share new African narratives through campaigns.
The friend says, oh, I'm seeing this thing on Facebook. Where is it happening? Now, Yege Stadium, everybody goes there.
On Network, we tell you how Africans are staying connected. We also have new gadgets, games and social media news. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 19:30 Central African Time.
It's Tuesday, the 26th of April 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404. If you've just joined us, Jumbo Africa. And a very warm welcome as we broadcast live from Auckland Park Studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preslin.
And I'm Renee Vest, and we'll be with you until 12 o'clock. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Today, of course, we've been focusing on the Sports Minister, Fikile Mbalula, who has banned South African rugby, cricket SA, netball SA and athletics SA, who haven't met their transformation targets from hosting international events.
I've therefore resolved to revoke the privilege of Athletics South Africa, Cricket South Africa, Netball South Africa, and South African Rugby Union to host and bid for any major and mega international tournaments in the Republic of South Africa as a consequence of the aforementioned federation not meeting their own set transformation targets with immediate effect.
A bold step indeed. Is it a step in the right or the wrong direction? But how do you view the Sports Minister's stance on transformation? Send us your comments on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. President Jacob Zuma concluded his two-day state visit to Iran and says South Africa will soon start to import crude oil from the Islamic State. The African National Congress has pressed charges of high treason against the EFF as a party and its leader, Julius Malema, at the Hillbrow police station. And the United States holds primary elections in 5 key states today. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news with Renee, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you.
Elvis and Ray, good morning. Renee, rather, good morning, and good morning to everybody at home as well. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
I've therefore resolved to revoke the privilege of Athletics South Africa.
Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula talks tough on transformation, revoking hosting and bidding rights for 4 of the Big 5 sports federations. And all this is Tottenham Hotspur's title hopes in tatters after being held to a draw by West Bromwich Albion at White Hart Lane last night. Rafael Nadal makes good on his threat and sues former French sports minister with allegations that he failed the drugs test. I'll have you know, I'll also be having special guest Matthew Booth, a former Bafana legend, in studio with us to discuss the thrills and spills beyond the limelight. What happens to a player after he finished playing? Now back to the main desk for the news.
Thank you very much, Kendall. President Jacob Zuma has meanwhile concluded his 2-day visit to Iran. The president said South Africa will soon start to import crude oil from the Islamic State. Trade between both countries has been revived after it plummeted a few years ago following international sanctions against Iran.
Africa engages its offshore gas and oil exploration. Iran, with its expertise, could come in handy. Pretoria is considering building an oil refinery.
We have good understanding on the issue of the refineries. As you know, that they are good in dealing with such projects. I don't think there is an issue we discussed that we did not agree.
But the biggest stumbling block since the sanctions is financial transactions. Money can't move from one side to the other.
That was one of the leading items in the discussions, the question of the banking between the two countries and finances. We discussed that quite extensively. and we all realize that without the flows of the finances, it will be very difficult. So it's one of the issues that we think it should lead in terms of it being implemented. There are small issues that we are dealing with arising out of the sanctions, which we believe it's not going to be more than 4 weeks before they are resolved.
With Iran emerging from the dark years of economic isolation, the influx from different countries to make trade deals is perhaps indicative of the economic potential this Middle Eastern country has. Surely, South Africa does not want to be left out. Mzwandile Mbeje, SABC News, Tehran, Iran.
The ANC has pressed charges of high treason against the EFF as a party and its leader Julius Malema at a Hillbrow police station. ANC spokesperson Zizi Kodwa spoke to the media after laying the charges. He said the statements made by Malema in an interview with a Middle Eastern media station are inflammatory and incite violence. EFF Secretary General Godrich Gardia says Malema and the party will defend themselves in court. Gardia was speaking to journalists in Soweto.
To remove a democratically elected government through a barrel of a gun. We think the statements were not just inflammatory, they were not just calling for violence, but we think that SABC must investigate because there are statements against constitution, against democracy, against the law. Just to remove a democratically elected government through undemocratic means is something that we are concerned about as a governing party.
Well, we will hear what the court says, but definitely it's not an incitement of violence. It's a fair political comment in an election mood period. When a country is in an election period, it should be seen in that context. It's a fair political comment.
Mine workers at Lily Gold Mine in Barberton in Mpumalanga have not been paid their April salaries. The miners were supposed to have been paid last Thursday. The mine suspended operations 2 months ago when the mine shaft caved in, trapping 3 workers underground.
Distress. Most of the locals here are workers at the Lily Gold Mine. But since February the 5th, they are idling at home. The workers were advised to stay at home until their co-workers, Priti Nkambule, Yvonne Mnisi, and Solomon Nyerende are found and brought to surface. The mine management promised to look after them, but it would seem mine management hasn't done so. Apparently, workers were instructed not to talk to the media. AMCU, the majority union at the mine, is concerned about the latest developments, but it remains hopeful that the mine will keep its promise. The mine applied for a business rescue. The appointed business rescue practitioner remains hopeful that the funds to pay the workers will be forthcoming. It is almost 3 months since the mine disaster. Management is still to find ways to recover the container with the trio. Spephile Gunene, SABC, Lily Mine, Barberton.
An alleged victim has formally laid a charge against a man on the list of 11 alleged Rhodes University sex offenders. The list led to a week of protests by students who say there is a growing rape culture on the campus. Dr. Sizwe Mabizela, Vice-Chancellor of Rhodes University, says the university is working closely with police on the matter.
Students returned to class, many catching up on the work they lost last week. The protests have stopped, but the students say their fight is far from over.
Although they may try to put measures to ensure that campus is safe, in reality it's not yet safe.
I think the protests were definitely necessary because rape culture is something that really isn't discussed enough, especially in this country.
The Rhodes SRC says it will also initiate educational dialogues.
Place where
Counseling center and our safe areas in terms of where people can come in if they are triggered, which we have counselors present at that moment, and also we're planning to have dining hall talks.
The sexual harassment protocol of the university will also be overhauled by the task team.
The Legal Resources Center has also come forward and has expressed a willingness to assist students who wish to report cases of rape and sexual violence in all its guises.
The police say they can now investigate the matter as a case has been opened. Lerato Tipa, SABC News, Grahamstown.
Learning and teaching in the township of Mpumalanga, just outside Henenman in the Free State, has been disrupted. Disgruntled residents have been protesting since last Thursday. They want 2 councillors to step down immediately as they have failed to deliver for the community.
Protest on the streets of Mpumalanga. Streets are barricaded. Schools are closed. Residents are fed up and want the councillors for the area out. For these young people, playing football is an alternative to taking part in protests.
When you go to school, they throw stones at us, so that's why we choose not to go to school and play soccer.
But other residents are defiant. The ANC in the region say it is ready to deal with the challenges.
People of Henenman will go to a mass meeting, identify or appoint the person of their choice to say whom do they want to be a councillor. As the ANC region, as the ANC in the region, we talk to the branches. I think now we're left to calling those people that because they are claiming that they're members of the ANC.
Police are maintaining a strong presence. Meanwhile, 8 people who were arrested on Friday made a brief appearance in the local magistrate's court and have been remanded in custody. They are charged with public violence and are expected back in court this Friday. Kwanelo Lekhafola, SABC News in Henenman in the Free State.
The International Criminal Court has announced it's launching preliminary examination into the situation in Burundi for alleged crimes including rape, murder and torture. This after a top Tutsi general was gunned down in Bujumbura. General Athanasa Kararuza, a security advisor to one of Burundi's vice presidents, and his wife were killed in the rocket and grenade attack by unidentified assailants. At least 430 people have been killed and over 3,400 arrested in violence and unrest in Burundi since disputed elections last April. Our Europe correspondent Jack Parrock reports.
250,000 Burundians have fled to neighbouring countries like Tanzania and Uganda since the political crisis in Burundi began 1 year ago. And now the International Criminal Court says it's going to look into whether to investigate whether crimes against humanity and war crimes have been committed there.
It is a process of analysing the information available to determine whether the applicable legal criteria have been met for the opening of an ICC investigation. According to the Rome Statute, the treaty which governs the court, as prosecutor, I must consider issues of jurisdiction, admissibility, and the interest of justice.
Burundi has been engulfed in unrest since President Pierre Nkurunziza was elected for a 3rd term, which many believe is unconstitutional. The International Criminal Court is only supposed to step in when a country is unwilling or unable to handle a case, and some fear the Burundian judiciary has turned a blind eye.
So now the general prosecutor will be obliged to deliver the content of his files and prove that he had handled it very fairly. And what is the reaction of a family that I have the honor to represent is that we fear that the general prosecutor didn't make his job.
South African President Jacob Zuma has been involved in African Union-sponsored talks for Burundi. The Burundian embassy in The Hague has not been available for comment.
The ICC case against the Kenyan Deputy President William Ruto was dropped at the beginning of the month, which means that the prosecutor of the court has more time and more resources to look into ongoing situations like the one in Burundi. But the preliminary examination could take months before a full investigation is launched. Jack Parrock, SABC News, Brussels.
The United Nations has confirmed that it's trying to facilitate the return of South Sudanese opposition leader Riek Machar to the country's capital, Juba. International frustration at the delays has been growing as the formation of a transitional government of national unity is seen as a critical step in moving the peace process forward.
Riek Machar's chief of staff seen as a positive move, as General Simon Gatwech Duwal's presence in Juba viewed as a hopeful precursor to the much-delayed arrival of his boss.
The Joint Monitoring Evaluation Commission and the AU have requested the UN to facilitate the return of Riek Machar, and we're trying to continue to fulfill this request.
Machar missed an international deadline for his return to Juba on Saturday after his plane departing Ethiopia was refused landing rights, infuriating the international community, including key backer, the United States.
The arrival of Mr. Machar's chief of staff is hopefully seen as a positive and harbinger of things to come, and the return of the man himself.
The United States has been particularly vocal on this issue, expressing disappointment in the delays, while the UN Secretary-General late last week called for Machar's return to Juba without delay and without further conditions being placed on the table by either side, which could not only jeopardize the fragile peace process, but also prolong the suffering of the South Sudanese people. Sherwin Brycepease, SABC News, New York.
As US poultry, beef and pork make their way to South African retailers' shelves, the long-standing trade dispute has ended and new avenues for trade and partnership between the US and South Africa are opening. Ambassador Gaspard acknowledged this milestone at the Mother of All Braais, where grilled chicken, beef and pork was served to more than 100 invited guests. SABC foreign editor Sophie Mokoena spoke to Ambassador Patrick Gaspard.
We're excited, not only because we have this wonderful braai, but because it means that we're moving products that will result in real jobs for real South Africans, and Americans are going to benefit from this increase in trade as well. And this moment gives us an opportunity to move beyond chicken and to talk about all that we can do with one another in the new economy with renewable energy and regional trade facilitation. So it's a great day.
Well, looking at what we have currently, how many tons, when is the stock arriving, and on issues of beef and pork, how far are we with the negotiations or maybe the transportation thereof?
Sure. There will be 65,000 tons of the chicken arriving. Some of it is already here, being sold in shops in KZN, in Gauteng, down in the Eastern Cape. And there are more making their way across the waters. We have not yet received U.S. beef or pork, but that will come in the next few weeks as well. So the issue is resolved, and we're moving forward with our Partnership for Prosperity.
There were concerns around health issues.
See, just a little bit of my American pride. We are, I think, rightly proud that our industry is rated one of the highest qualities and one of the safest ones anywhere in the globe. And your own health minister, who is widely respected internationally, Minister Aaron Motsoaledi, has given this his seal of approval. If it's good enough for Minister Motsoaledi, I think it's good enough for me and just about everybody else. Very incredibly high standards here, and I hope that you will get to sample some of it today.
People are arguing that there should be labels to indicate that this is the product from the U.S. Do you agree with that?
Well, we certainly support all labeling. It is labeled as it arrives in South Africa, and then there are decisions that are made by local distributors about how they move the product. That's outside of our purview, and that's something to be resolved amongst South Africans. But I will tell you that those who have already had U.S. chicken think it's a fantastic quality, so I know that as labeling increases, that's only going to increase the appetite the South Africans have to grab the U.S. product off the shelf.
And finally, Ambassador, it's election season in the U.S. How do you ensure that whoever comes in next year after President Obama, the relationship continue?
Well, it's election season in the U.S., but it's also election season in South Africa. And all of us should recognize and really appreciate the fact that we have strong and enduring bonds that survive beyond election cycles, beyond trade negotiations. When President Mandela had his first bilateral with President Bill Clinton many years ago. Both sides recognize the shared values that are expressed in our constitutions that reflect one another. We've only strengthened those bonds in this period, and I'm certain that whoever's president of South Africa next, whoever's president of the United States next, will continue to move our relationship from strength to strength.
Our foreign editor also spoke to Dr. Faisal Ismail, who was part of the Department of Trade and Industry's negotiating team. She asked him if South Africa's health concerns over the imported U.S. chickens have been addressed.
The most complex issues in the negotiation. This is why the negotiation was delayed for several months, because the veterinary professionals from South Africa and the United States continue to meet and to discuss how to find creative solutions to the particular health standards that will be applied to chicken, to beef, and to pork. Chicken was complicated further by the fact that in the United States they had avian flu during the early part of last year and during the latter part of last year. And the issue of salmonella became a debatable question because of the differences between the two countries' standards on salmonella. These were legitimate differences, but in a discussion like this, in a negotiation, we had to find each other and find an accommodation of each other's needs. But I am assured, and I think Minister Davies and the government of South Africa is assured, that the poultry that comes into South Africa, that has come in since the 26th of February, meets the stringent requirements of the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries.
In news from the U.S. primary elections, Republican rivals Ted Cruz and John Kasich have formed an alliance to stop Donald Trump from winning the party's nomination. They hope their coordinated strategy will allow them to jointly battle the New York businessman.
In this bitter and bruising race for the White House, teamwork is not exactly expected. But in an unusual show of solidarity, Ted Cruz and John Kasich would rather band together than see Trump triumph. That means carving up the map, allowing Cruz to campaign unchallenged by Kasich in Indiana, and in return giving Kasich a free run at New Mexico and Oregon. Wow. But this is more about maths than resources. Trump needs the magic number of 1,237, the number of delegates he needs across all the US states to win the Republican nomination outright. Failing to get there forces a contested convention, where delegates could pick any of the candidates, a scenario Cruz and Kasich are hoping for, as it could be their only ticket to the White House. Trump, never known for keeping quiet, accused his competitors of collusion and desperation. Trump is on track for another big delegate haul in Tuesday's Northeast primaries. This joint Cruz-Kasich strategy could slow him down, but it also seems to be an acknowledgement that alone, neither of them can beat Trump, and it could still be too little, too late. Tuesday's results are likely to push Trump a step closer to leading the Republicans in November's general election. Nick Arthur, SABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is hoping to sweep all 5 primary contests. However, Bernie Sanders continues to challenge and slow her progress towards a Democratic nomination to run for the White House.
Thank you all very, very much. Bernie Sanders' surprisingly successful run for the White House may end just a short distance from where it started. That short distance from Capitol Hill is Maryland, one of 5 states holding primary elections, and it's where Hillary Clinton is in the lead. But this is unlikely to be the end of his influence in the Democratic Party. Ahead of the 5 primary contests, Hillary Clinton has been trying to recast her image.
America is stronger when we are all supporting one another.
She's also been turning her attention to the upcoming general election campaign, floating ideas of who might run with her on the Democratic Party ticket, including the following senators: Sherrod Brown of Ohio, Tim Kaine of Virginia, or even another woman, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Following the votes in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland, the next challenge for the likely Democratic Party nominee, Hillary Clinton, is the fact that more American voters dislike her than like her. Priscilla Huff, SABC News, Washington.
Zimbabweans from all walks of life have been paying tribute to Congolese music icon Papa Wemba. Fellow music icon Oliver Mtukudzi called on the media to ensure the musical genius of the African legends such as Papa Wemba are not lost.
Malumune, oh malumune, malumune, malumune.
Zimbabwe's music legend Oliver Mtukudzi recalls the first time he heard Papa Wemba sing.
I saw a movie called Lavavia, and in this movie was part of one of the actors there. I think he was a supporting actor, and he sang Malumune, malumune. And I fell in love with that song, and I tried to find out who is this guy, and I discovered it was Papa Wemba. And from there, I had been a fan.
The two would later on meet on many occasions. According to Mtukudzi, it was Papa Wemba's voice that was his talent, a voice that he says pierced his heart.
It's a sad thing that Papa Wemba is gone. He was a unique artist. We have shared stage several different festivals abroad, and it's sad to hear that he's no more.
Across the country, Zimbabwe has been paying tribute to the late king of Rumba rock.
It's tragic, very tragic. It came as a surprise. He's a legend, African legend. Coincidentally died the same time with the American legend Prince. He was an entertainer, very eccentric man.
I remember having all-night dance parties to his music when I was younger, so I don't know if there is anyone who will be able to fill his shoes.
Young musicians also paid tribute to the impact the icon had on the local music scene.
Rumba music have affected Zimbabwean music in terms of dancing and instrumental. The way they play the instrument and the way people dances.
Papa Wemba's death comes as Africans bemoan the loss of the identity of African music, a loss that Mtukudzi blames on the media.
You don't promote who we are. You promote alien stuff, even though you are an African media, but you don't talk about Africa. You talk about what you learn from somewhere else, and you don't talk about what you experience.
Shingai Nyoka, SABC News, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Struggle icon Winnie Mandikizela Mandela and Mac Maharaj will be among the 32 distinguished local citizens and foreign nationals who will receive national orders tomorrow. President Jacob Zuma will bestow orders to deserving recipients as a gesture to mark Freedom Day. The president will honor, among others, political activists, academics and artists, both living and posthumous. The national orders are the highest awards that the country can grant on citizens or eminent foreign nationals. The aim is to recognize people's roles towards building a free democratic South Africa. They are the Order of Mendi for bravery, the Order of Ikamanga, the Order of the Baobab, the Order of Lutuli, and the Order of... We'll be back after this short break.
they basically arrest him, continue to arrest him on behalf of the apartheid government.
We are dealing with effects. We are not dealing with the causes. And for as long as we deal with effects, we are never going to solve this problem.
What do these people need in prison? Why are they there? The PAC, as Dr. Pegu is saying, has been seeking answers, and they're not coming.
What kind of answers are you getting?
I really think I've answered that question.
I think it's a difficult question. I don't have an answer for it. How was it possible that they could operate with such impunity?
The only thing you want is closure.
The only thing we want is closure. And unfortunately, I don't really have sympathy for the idea that if you're too old, you shouldn't stand trial.
That's Rights and Recourse with Dumile Mateza, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central African Time, only on the SABC News Channel.
Good morning, welcome back. My name is Kendall Makhamat and I've got your sports on Newsroom, time being just after 10:30. Now, the Ministry of Sport and Recreation has made good on its threat to punish the sport federations that did not meet their transformation targets. Now, Sports and Recreation Minister Fikile Mbalula has revoked privileges of the rugby, cricket, netball and athletics federations to bid or host major and any mega international events. This means the South African Rugby Union, which had expressed interest to bid for the 2023 Rugby World Cup, but not be able to do so.
The South African Rugby Union and Cricket South Africa have been accused of dragging their feet in trying to meet the transformation targets. The two federations, along with 17 others, set themselves transformation targets in March 2014. This was after the Eminent Persons Group released a report detailing how much some codes remain untransformed. Now, the ministry, which has been criticized for handling rugby in particular with kid gloves, has acted.
I've therefore resolved to revoke the privilege of Athletics South Africa, Cricket South Africa, Netball South Africa, and South African Rugby Union to host and bid for any major and mega international tournaments in the Republic of South Africa as a consequence of the aforementioned federation not meeting their own set transformation targets.
And this might have far-reaching consequences for SARU, which had expressed interest to bid for 2023 Rugby World Cup. The tender documents for the tournament must be submitted to World Rugby in June. But the minister has spared the athletes who compete in the 4 sporting codes.
On the basis of the aforementioned reasons, I've therefore resolved not to revoke punitive measures that may either paralyze our federations financially or deny opportunities to our athletes to compete continentally and globally.
While the minister has praised the football governing body SAFA for meeting its targets, he has directed it to intensify efforts to penetrate former Model C and private schools. Pesing Katlo, SABC News.
Now, moving a little further afield, Tottenham Hotspur's Premier League title hopes are hanging by a thread. This after a 1-1 draw at home to West Bromwich Albion on Monday left Leicester City tantalizingly close to being crowned champions of England for the very first time. Now, here are the highlights of the draw at White Hart Lane.
Oh, inside of the post, and Harry Kane wonders, can you come any closer to that without actually scoring? You were a millimetre or two from being very pathetic. He certainly went that side. He was very, very close to giving Tottenham the lead. Kane can hit it from here and challenges Boaz Myhill again. Taken by Eriksson, and it's ended up in the back of the net. And Jan Vertonghen is celebrating the goal. They have made the breakthrough. Great touch by Ali to Eriksson. Ramella, there's the post. Ali. Eriksson might be able to hit one himself here. It's almost as if the ball was a bit too central. Confidence here that their team might come up with a sensational equaliser. And And they have done. And it's Dawson. 1-1. A real setback for Tottenham. Pochettino hangs his head. It's a massive result in the title race against Tottenham in the end. Tottenham won, West Bromwich Albion won.
Now, after watching that, the story of sportsmen and women falling on hard times once they hang up the tools of their trade is one that's not new to us, from boxers to track and field athletes, even soccer players. Joining me is former Bafana Bafana International and Mamelodi Sundowns legend Matthew Booth. Good morning, welcome back to Newsroom.
Thank you, always good to be back.
Matthew, before we actually get into the nub of our discussion, you just watched the highlights of that match. Tottenham drawing with WBA, with West Brom. What do you reckon? Leicester have taken it, isn't it?
Pretty much so. Even though they've got Man United, I think, next up, I'm just kicking myself for not having put money on them at the beginning of the season. I think they were 5,000 to 1.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think you and a whole lot of other people are. There is somebody who cashed in on his bet and made quite a lot of English pounds when he did that. Well done and congratulations to him. Matthew, the reason why we've got you here is because you know that truism that once the spotlight goes off, the shine goes off on one's life, it disappears. Is that true, or is that just a falsehood?
No, without a doubt, it's a truth. I think for many footballers who perhaps get phoned by the media or get to perform their trade on television, and just in an instant, all that goes away. I think psychologically, players definitely have to be tough in that manner. You know, there's a number of other elements as well which they have to be careful of while they are applying their trade. And certainly, I'm very happy and glad to be part of this initiative.
Yeah, which is what we're looking at right now. We're looking at something called the Ring of Steel, brought through by one of the sponsors at PSL. Definitely an initiative that a lot of people have made a lot of people sit up, take notice, because what has happened is people lose their way, even while they're playing sometimes. And what do you think of this particular initiative, and why did you agree to get involved with it?
Well, I think Nedbank obviously not only offer a fantastic platform for the FA Cup of South Africa, but also from a CSI point of view, this initiative is very important because they're focusing on an element of our game which people know about, but not many clubs and not many corporates have done much about. So this is a topic which has always been very close to my heart. It's something that I've tried to do in my own spare time, is to get ex-pros involved in coaching clinics, etc., through my trust. But certainly, you know, with the likes of Helman and Kalela and a number of other mentors and agents, nutritionists, you know, it's vitally important to set an example, and hopefully the professional clubs will follow suit.
Can I ask you this? How have you managed to keep your head above water? Because, look, I think your last competitive match was, 3 years ago?
Yeah, a year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago.
I finished off at Wits about a year and a half, nearly 2 years ago.
Yeah.
For me, I was always fearful of my financial situation. So from a money point of view, I was always very careful about not being too flashy. You know, footballers do have a bad reputation with regards alcohol and being womanizers, etc. And that's not necessarily true. There are a couple of bad apples who do give it away for the rest of us. But generally, footballers are family people, people who are under pressure from a social point of view. The English Premier League doesn't help us. Because everybody thinks that we're earning thousands of pounds. Exactly, you know. And people must also realize that footballers come from generally lower LSM group. Working class has always been a working class game, and therefore it's not only their immediate families that they have to look after once they start earning cash, but very much an extended family as well.
Is it something that you find that happens particularly in South Africa? You've traveled the entire world almost, and you've played in different places in Europe itself. Or is it something that you find there as well? That stigma of what footballers could be like and really are not like is?
Well, I think the stigma follows us all. Wherever you go around the world, there is that perception. The statistics are quite frightening, though. I think after 5 years after retirement, 75% of footballers will be divorced, broke, or both.
Wow.
And that's in Europe and here in South Africa. So that's something that we're definitely going to try and harp on about and educate players about so that we can change that particular stat.
Now, did you find that for you, as a white man living in South Africa, was it different? One, did it make you more fearful of not having money because you grew up in a society or a part of society where it was very important to take care of your retirement and you know, people speak about it at the dinner table? That is at least how people see white society who are not white. Or did you see that it was easier for you to actually make it after you stopped playing, being a white man? Or was it exactly the same as your peers and colleagues?
I don't like to see it as a colour issue per se. I like to look at it more from an economic point of view. And I think, you know, people must realise that there are a lot of black kids out there who have never been to a township.
Yes.
You know, so times are changing slowly. But again, going back to the working class or lower LSMs, you know, they obviously miss a lot of elements, or, you know, whether it be education or parental support or, you know, what have you, good mentors, you know, going to a good school. And having said that, I know a lot of colleagues of mine who came from middle and upper class backgrounds who didn't turn out so great either. So, you know, it's not a plan which will is 100% sort of foolproof, you know.
Yeah.
There's some hell of a characters who have come out of diversity, you know. But it definitely helps to have those kinds of that kind of support group, which Nedbank and the Kiona team are offering, which is magic.
No, very good. And you're going to be involved with them with the Nedbank Ring of Steel. Please tell us, just in a couple of words, what focus have they asked you to have with these youngsters?
Well, myself and Helman Mkalela are going to be obviously the ex-players who are going to offer advice to the three youngsters and just speak to them about our experiences as professionals, you know, the highs and lows, whether it be on the field or off the field. Generally financial and lifestyle choices which they're going to have to make. And, you know, it's all very well us talking to them and speaking to them, but at the same time, they've got to also listen and then also implement it, which are two different skills. So hopefully they'll be up for that as well.
Matthew Booth, thank you so much for coming through. And I think from the bottom of all South Africans' hearts, thank you very much for getting involved with this kind of initiative, because we are all tired of seeing our stars actually falling by the wayside once they've hung up their boots.
Magic. Always a pleasure, man.
Matthew Booth, ladies and gentlemen, giving us a lowdown on what he's doing to help the issue. Now, looking at tonight's PSL fixtures before we shut down with the sports, here's a quick look. As you can see, we've got Free State Stars against Maritzburg United. We're nearing the end of the season, and that's exactly why the SuperSport United Bidvest match is quite important. It's a tactical one. We'll see Bidvest trying to see if they can catch up with Mamelodi Sundowns. They're currently sitting 6 points adrift of Mamelodi Sundowns, sitting on 58 points. We'll be able to see what happens with that tonight, and tomorrow morning we'll be bringing you that report. Now, some of the world's best judo athletes are strutting their stuff in Nelson Mandela Bay at the Commonwealth Judo Games. It's also the first time the Judo Games are hosted on the African continent. South Africa successfully outbid 2 other countries to host these games.
South Africa, like many other Commonwealth members, is seen as a developing country when it comes to judo. Judo powerhouses include France, Japan, and the former Russian Federation countries. Coming off the back of a successful 2011 Junior World Champs in Cape Town, South Africa topped Scotland and India for this event.
Each of the 3 countries made a presentation on what they would be prepared to offer, which judo categories, the city where it would be, the dates of the competition, the hotels, the categories, and the Congress listened to all those 3 bids, and then there was a voting process where everybody had a confidential vote. Every country had 1 vote, and at the end of the day, South Africa came out tops.
The Commonwealth Judo Association predominantly sees its role as a development one, which fits in with the challenges faced by the sport in South Africa.
We have to go to the rural, we have to go to townships, we have to then make sure that all of them are on board, they play sport. Now what becomes difficult is them accessing it because of resources. So our main challenge is resources to make sure that everybody who does judo is catered for.
500 athletes from 15 Commonwealth nations are taking part in the Games.
By competing against different countries, we also learn different techniques and styles because in South Africa, we have a specific way of fighting, and all the countries have their own ways of fighting. And to apply what you know and how you've learned your specific techniques, and to apply it against different styles, left, right, grip over, that type of thing, it makes your judo much more fun.
The final matches are scheduled for the 28th of April. Janine Lee, SABC News, Port Elizabeth.
The courage to move the party forward. Booyah. There are those who forge on uninvited. Truth or dare? Dare. Every time. So to the fearless, we salute you. Party comrade. Join the movement online.
Momentous point in the country's history. We didn't change anything, really. We just kind of added blacks.
I think it's about to get really intense in South Africa.
The whole system is very, very anti-poor and very, very anti-black.
I think white people need to, A, take an L and say, okay, we screwed up and we can't always be the father figure.
Success for a white kid is not like a great victory. Success for a white kid is destined.
It's not so much about engaging in conversation, really. It's more about listening.
If you're uncomfortable with me being a black person, then yeah, you know you're in the wrong country.
I don't believe in the Rainbow Nation. The Rainbow Nation to me is a fallacy because it does not exist.
Now, while race dominates the conversation, that documentary, People versus the Rainbow Nation, raises some very complex questions about issues that South Africa still faces and the views of young people in South Africa today. Now, the film drew from the Rhodes and Feast Must Fall protests that erupted across the country last year, where thousands brought the universities to a standstill. Now, to tell us more about the film, we're joined by the filmmaker and director of People versus the Rainbow Nation, Lebogang Rasataba. Lebogang, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Good to be here. How are you?
Now, for the people who haven't seen the documentary, including myself, tell us a little bit more about the docu.
I think it's a film. When we made the film, we really wanted to look at this as a point in time, as a point in history. And we wanted to highlight how young people navigate the intersecting lines of power in society. So race, gender, class, identity, sexuality, all the ways in which, all the coding and all the ways in which society is set up, those rules affect people differently depending on their background, on their gender, on their ability. So I think it was really just wanting to interrogate that a little bit.
What inspired you to create this film?
I was actually approached by MTV, and they said to me, look, we want to make a film essentially about what it means to be a young person right now within the context of the Rainbow Nation. What is that? What does it mean? What does it look like? How does it feel? So I think that where previously, when we looked at forms of oppression, I think we're looking at things that were very crude. But now we're looking at the more subtle forms of what you'd call racism, classism, etc., that young people face on a daily. So it's not really about, someone shambucking you, but it's a look or something.
And it seems like it came out very strong in the documentary. One of the of the people in the video there says that for a white kid, success is destined. Yeah. And for a black kid, what does it mean?
That's actually a very thorny line in the film. But I think what it talks to is this idea that I read it somewhere that it's not really saying that as a white person you'll never have a difficult life. That's not true. You will have a difficult life as a white person, and white people continue to have difficult lives, but it'll never be because you're white, whereas black people will have a difficult life because you are a black person. So it really looks at those kind of things where, you know, the example that's made is that if you're a black person and you miss one opportunity in life, you might not get that many, and you have to work extra harder to be successful, whereas white people have a lot more social graces because of intergenerational wealth, because of capital that's in the form of bank loans, etc. So it's really looking at those subtleties that affect people differently based on your background.
And what other issues came out of the documentary that were raised by the youngsters and youth, especially in relation to social cohesion in South Africa?
Yeah, I guess it's just this feeling, one of those feelings that the system and the way in which it's set up, if you're a young black person in South Africa, there's a lot more challenges to being a success, to being heard. So when you succeed, you're not really the rule, you're more the exception. It's not really guaranteed, and I think that's what it's trying to highlight.
What issues, other than that, does the documentary raise in relation to youth and social cohesion, especially when we talk about the Rainbow Nation? Because there was a lot said, you know, during the Town Madiba that this is supposed to be our Rainbow Nation. Is that perhaps a question that's being raised of whether this Rainbow Nation is a myth?
I think it challenges that, and and the thing is that no one is saying that they don't like the Rainbow Nation. No one is saying that they don't want the Rainbow Nation. I think we all want to live in a South Africa where we all move freely as equals, but the reality is that we don't. So it's really interrogating that idea and why we don't move in society as equals, why we don't move in society, why we aren't equally heard, why some voices are privileged more than others, why. You know, I think it's really looking at those things more with a lot more depth.
Now, we are a very diverse society, so you must have probably got mixed reaction from the movie. Tell me about it. Was there any?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of different views on the film, but I'm more interested in the people, the young people who will use this film as a lexicon on how to move forward in society. So this young guy came up to me and he was just like, hey man, I had an incident the other day and I didn't have the words to articulate why I felt some type of way. But after seeing your film, I can now revisit that moment and be like, I don't like how that felt because of these particular things. There's a whole section on the film on patriarchy. And that, I mean, I was with my mom yesterday and she's just like, she wishes she had like this kind of information when she was growing up, because she would have been able to navigate like the role of patriarchy within a corporate environment. So it's really just about, and those are the people whose views I'm the most interested in. I mean, like, you know, there's going to be a lot of denialists. There's going to be a lot of white people that think like, no, this is not true. And I'm not really interested in that view because the film is not really meant for them. It's meant to equip young people who have got an interest in living in a society that's equal with the correct information and context to be able to take things to the next step.
So you're focusing on 4 youngsters in the movie?
5.
5. Take us through that.
It's Mia, a young white girl from UCT. There's a girl called Lungelo, a young girl from Soweto who moves from Soweto to Wits every day. There's a privileged girl, very, very wealthy girl from Kilani. Her name is Azra. There's a guy called Richard who's from Tzanini, and he's got a sports bursary from the University of Pretoria. And then there's a colored guy called Adrian from Kales River, and he goes to Stellenbosch University. So we've got a kind of a cross-section of young voices, young people from different walks of life that attend different institutions. So it was, if you look at the university as a microcosm for society, right, as something that mirrors the power dynamics in society, it was interesting to have the conversations happening in the university space and look at how they're more reflective of the bigger problems in society.
Sounds like a very exciting project. Where to from here, and where can people see the movie if they want to?
It's on MTV. It's doing a big circulation on MTV. I think we're also going to be releasing it on the internet. And also, as we discovered, because MTV is kind of an exclusive space, maybe free-to-air channels, I think ETV. I think for the meantime, people will be able to view it on those platforms for some time to come.
All the best.
Thank you.
Great project. That was filmmaker and director of People versus the Rainbow Nation, Lebogang Resetaba. Well, we've run out of time, and it's time now to take a look at your weather forecast.
Thanks very much and warm welcome. Let's take a look at your weather details, starting off with South Africa, where we're expecting 30% chance of showers situated over the eastern parts, going to the northern parts, over the eastern parts of Limpopo, and over the interior to some parts of northwest. Over the southern parts of Mozambique, we're seeing 30% chance of showers, and over the eastern parts of Zimbabwe, covering Harare, with 30% chance of showers. Over Botswana and Namibia, we're expecting partly cloudy skies for today to clear skies with no rain forecast. Tomorrow, we're still seeing 30% chance of showers situated over the far northern parts of Limpopo and over the southern parts of Zimbabwe. Along Mozambique, we have 30% chance of showers along the coastal regions sitting over Maputo as well. Over the interior of South Africa, we will see partly cloudy skies to clear skies, and also over Namibia. Temperatures will sit at a maximum of 29 over Pretoria and 24 over Harare. Sunny skies over Lusaka with a maximum of 27 degrees. Mostly sunny skies over Windhoek at 27 and 20 over Cape Town. Towards the central interior, still seeing 30 to 60% chance of showers. Kampala covered by 30% chance of showers, and Addis Ababa as well. Yaounde is covered by 30 to 60% chance of thunder showers for today. Tomorrow, still seeing 30 to 60% chance of showers over these regions. Over Brazzaville and the northern parts of Brazzaville, we have about 80% chance of thunder showers to 100% chance. That's associated with heavy falls, so please do take note of that. Moving towards the eastern parts, we've seen partly cloudy skies to 30% chance of showers. Kampala covered by 30% chance of showers, and Juba as well. Mogadishu, 60% chance of thunder showers is forecast. Temperatures will reach a maximum of 39 over Bangui. Drizzle is forecast over Juba, Kampala, and over Nairobi. Mombasa will sit at a maximum of 33 degrees and 25 over Lilongwe. If you will be in Luanda, do expect partly cloudy skies with a maximum of 32 degrees. Towards the Middle East, we're seeing Mika covered by 30% chance of showers, and Djibouti. Or moving towards the northern parts, we have Baghdad with partly cloudy skies to clear skies, and Cairo as well. Moving further to tomorrow, we're still seeing 30% chance of showers over Sana'a, Djibouti. A little bit of rainfall can be expected over Mika. Riyadh will be partly cloudy to sunny skies. Damascus covered by 30, and Baghdad as well. Temperatures forecast to reach a maximum of 34 over Damascus, 40 over Cairo, 42 over Riyadh, 40 over Mika. And if you will be in Tripoli, do expect a maximum of 23 degrees and 24 over Sana'a. Moving towards the western parts, we're seeing 30% chance of showers over Lagos, but over the interior of Nigeria, it will remain partly cloudy to clear skies. Bamako is clear, and Abidjan covered by 30% chance of showers. Towards Conakry, we just seen partly cloudy skies for today, and tomorrow we have 30% chance of showers over Conakry and over Abidjan. Lagos will be partly cloudy to clear skies. Over the interior of Cameroon, we're seeing 30 to 60% chance of showers. Temperatures will reach a maximum of 33 over Lagos and 32 over Abidjan. If you will be in Bamako, you can expect a maximum of 44 with partly cloudy skies, sunny skies over Marrakesh, Tunis at a maximum of 22 degrees. And that is all from the weather desk. If you would like to call us, this is our number at the weather desk, and you can give us a call and also tweet us on our hashtag SABC News Online, hashtag weather. That is all from the weather desk. Ndayando.
One other person has been shot dead and another is in a critical condition in hospital.
The CRL has laid charges against controversial televangelist Paseka Mutsoneng.
More than 1.3 million South Africans have been added in the past two registration weekends.
The International Monetary Fund warns that policy uncertainty could dampen economic growth in South Africa.
And all eyes are on the new Bok coach, Alistair Coetzee, his challenge to keep everyone in the country happy.
Children's rights and health are a priority. in the journey of good health.
All children should have access to adequate health care, not only curative but preventative as well.
How to identify ADHD on children.
ADHD is a childhood disorder which manifests with the symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsivity, and or inattention.
Is breastfeeding still a vital nutrition to babies even today?
Breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life is absolutely crucial.
Catch Health Talk with Dr. Sello Mutawung every Saturday from 9 till 10 a.m.
Yes, it's Tuesday, the 26th of April 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the final hour as we broadcast live from Auckland Park Studios in Johannesburg to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Breslin.
And I'm Renee Vest, and we'll be with you for the last hour of the show. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Today, of course, we've been focusing on the Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula's statement banning SA Rugby, Cricket SA, Netball SA and Athletics SA, who haven't met their transformation targets from hosting international events.
I've therefore resolved to revoke the privilege of Athletics South Africa, Cricket South Africa, Netball South Africa, and South African Rugby Union to host and bid for any major and mega international tournament in the Republic of South Africa as a consequence of the aforementioned federation not meeting their own set transformation targets with immediate effect.
A bold statement. Now, how do you view the Sports Minister's stance on transformation? That is the question to you. On your screen right now, you can let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. President Jacob Zuma concluded his two-day state visit to Iran and says South Africa will soon start to import crude oil from the Islamic State. The African National Congress has pressed charges of high treason against the EFF as a party and its leader, Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema, at the Hillbrow police station. And the United States holds primary elections in 5 key states today. Those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news with Renee, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening in the sports front. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Not to knock any other news there, but I really love it when we lead with sports. You know, it's really good. Sports stories will freshen you up in the morning, and this is what's coming up in sports today.
I've therefore resolved to revoke the privilege of Athletics South Africa.
Sports Minister Fikile Mbalula talks tough on transformation, revoking hosting and bidding rights for 4 of the Big 5 sports federations. And Tottenham Hotspur's title hopes in tatters after being held to a draw by West Bromwich Albion at White Hart Lane last night. All this as Rafael Nadal makes good on his threat and sues former French sports minister over allegations that he failed a drugs test in 2012. And that's what we've got for you and more. Back to the main desk.
Thank you very much, Kendall. President Jacob Zuma has meanwhile concluded his 2-day state visit to Iran. The president said South Africa will soon start to import crude oil from the Islamic State. Trade between the countries has been revived after it plummeted a few years ago following international sanctions against Iran.
As South Africa engages its offshore gas and oil exploration, Iran, with its expertise, could come in handy. Pretoria is considering building an oil refinery.
We have good understanding on the issue of the refineries.
as you know, that they are good in dealing with such projects. I don't think there is an issue we discussed that we did not agree.
But the biggest stumbling block since the sanctions is financial transactions. Money can't move from one side to the other.
That was one of the leading items in the discussions, the question of the banking between the two countries and finances. We discussed that quite extensively. and we all realize that without the flows of the finances, it will be very difficult. So it's one of the issues that we think it should lead in terms of it being implemented. There are small issues that we are dealing with arising out of the sanctions, which we believe it's not going to be more than 4 weeks before they are resolved.
With Iran emerging from the dark years of economic isolation, the influx from different countries to make trade deals is perhaps indicative of the economic potential this Middle Eastern country has. Surely, South Africa does not want to be left out. Mzwandile Mbeji, SABC News, Tehran, Iran.
The ANC has pressed charges of high treason against EFF as a party and its leader, Julius Malema, at Hillbrow Police Station. ANC spokesperson Zize Kodwa spoke to the media after laying the charges. He said the statements made by Malema in an interview with a Middle Eastern media station are inflammatory and incite violence. EFF Secretary General Godrich Gardier says Malema and the party will defend themselves in court. Gardier was speaking to journalists in Soweto.
To remove a democratically elected government through a barrel of a gun. We think the statements were not just inflammatory, they were not just calling for violence, but we think that SABC must investigate because there are statements against constitution, against democracy, against the law. Just to remove a democratically elected government through undemocratic means is something that we are concerned about as a governing party.
Well, we will hear what the court says, but definitely it's not an incitement of violence. It's a fair political comment in an election mood period. When a country is in an election period, it should be seen in that context. It's a fair political comment.
Breaking news now. You will remember this name, Kenneth Kosana McCarthy. He was the creator of Please Call Me. He has just won the landmark case against Vodacom. The Constitutional Court has ordered Vodacom to compensate McCarthy. The Concord says Vodacom has to reach an agreement with McCarthy on the amount owed. We'll keep you updated on that story as it unfolds right here on your favorite channel, Channel 404. This is Newsroom. It's back to Renee.
An alleged victim of a man on the list of 11 alleged Rhodes University sex offenders has formally laid a charge. The list led to a week of protests by students who say there is a growing rape culture on campus. Dr. Sizwe Mabizela, Vice-Chancellor of Rhodes University, says the university is working closely with police on the matter.
Students returned to class, many catching up on the work they lost last week. The protests have stopped, but the students say their fight is far from over.
Although they may try to put measures to ensure that campus is safe, in reality it's not yet safe.
I think the protests were definitely necessary because rape culture is something that really isn't discussed enough, especially in this country.
The Rhodes SRC says it will also initiate educational dialogues.
The counselling centre and our safe areas in terms of where people can come in if they are triggered, which we have counsellors present at that moment, and also we're planning to have dining hall talks.
The sexual harassment protocol of the university will also be overhauled by the task team.
The Legal Resources Centre has also come forward and has expressed a willingness to assist students who wish to report cases of rape and sexual violence in all its guises.
The police say they can now investigate the matter as a case has been opened. Lerato Tipa, SABC News, Grahamstown.
Former President Thabo Mbeki has welcomed the outcome of the Seriti Commission on the arms deal. The report found no corruption in the procurement of arms by the South African government.
Mbeki says the report's findings echo the earlier arms deal inquiry, and so do its critique. He says there will always be some people who won't allow the truth to defeat their strategic objective, that of painting the government as corrupt.
It becomes very frustrating, I'm using a mild word, when the same person who could not produce a single fact of corruption at the commission pops up now and said there was corruption.
The former president says in the past, people denounced the findings of the joint investigation team as a cover-up in exactly the same way as the findings of the Judicial Commission have been dismissed.
These allegations, without facts, but sustained over many years, are based on a stereotype. And the stereotype is African governments are generally corrupt. Therefore, this African government is corrupt.
The former president says South Africans need to engage each other in a national dialogue. Lehana Trotitsi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Learning and teaching in the township of Mpumalanga, just outside Henenman in the Free State, has been disrupted. Disgruntled residents have been protesting since last Thursday. They want 2 councillors to step down immediately as they have failed to deliver for the community.
Protest on the streets of Mpumalanga. Streets are barricaded. Schools are closed. Residents are fed up and want the councillors for the area out. For these young people, playing football is an alternative to taking part in protests.
When you go to school, they throw stones at us, so that's why we choose not to go to school and play soccer.
But other residents are defiant. The ANC in the region say it is ready to deal with the challenges.
People of Henenman will go to a mass meeting, identify or appoint the person of their choice to say whom do they want to be a councillor. As the ANC region, as the ANC in the region, we talk to the branches. I think now we're left to calling those people that because they are claiming that they're members of the ANC.
Police are maintaining a strong presence. Meanwhile, 8 people who were arrested on Friday made a brief appearance in the local magistrate's court and have been remanded in custody. They are charged with public violence and are expected back in court this Friday. Kwanelo Lekhafola, SABC News in Henenman in the Free State.
The International Criminal Court has announced it's launching preliminary examination into the situation in Burundi for alleged crimes including rape, murder and torture. This after a top Tutsi general was gunned down in Bujumbura. General Athanas Kararuza, a security advisor to one of Burundi's vice presidents, and his wife were killed in the rocket and grenade attack by unidentified assailants. At least 430 people have been killed and over 3,400 arrested in violence and unrest in Burundi since disputed elections last April. Our Europe correspondent Jack Parrock reports.
Nearly 250,000 Burundians have fled to neighbouring countries like Tanzania and Uganda since the political crisis in Burundi began 1 year ago. And now the International Criminal Court says it's going to look into whether to investigate whether crimes against humanity and war crimes have been committed there.
It is a process of analysing the information available to determine whether the applicable legal criteria have been met for the opening of an ICC investigation. According to the Rome Statute, the treaty which governs the court, as prosecutor, I must consider issues of jurisdiction, admissibility, and the interest of justice.
Burundi has been engulfed in unrest since President Pierre Nkurunziza was elected for a 3rd term, which many believe is unconstitutional. The International Criminal Court is only supposed to step in when a country is unwilling or unable to handle a case, and some fear the Burundian judiciary has turned a blind eye.
So now the general prosecutor will be obliged to deliver the content of his files and prove that he had handled it very fairly. And what is the reaction of a family that I have the honor to represent is that we fear that the general prosecutor didn't make his job.
South African President Jacob Zuma has been involved in African Union-sponsored talks for Burundi. The Burundian embassy in The Hague has not been available for comment.
The ICC case against the Kenyan Deputy President William Ruto was dropped at the beginning of the month, which means that the prosecutor of the court has more time and more resources to look into ongoing situations like the one in Burundi. But the preliminary examination could take months before a full investigation is launched. Jack Parrick, SABC News, Brussels.
The United Nations has confirmed that it's trying to facilitate the return of South Sudanese opposition leader Riek Machar to the country's capital, Juba. International frustration at the delays has been growing as the formation of a transitional government of national unity is seen as a critical step in moving the peace process forward.
Riek Machar's chief of staff seen as a positive move, as General Simon Gatwech Dual's presence in Juba viewed as a hopeful precursor to the much-delayed arrival of his boss.
The Joint Monitoring Evaluation Commission and the AU have requested the UN to facilitate the return of Riek Machar, and we're trying to continue to fulfill this request.
Machar missed an international deadline for his return to Juba on Saturday after his plane departing Ethiopia was refused landing rights, infuriating the international community, including key backer the United States.
The arrival of Mr. Machar's chief of staff is hopefully seen as a positive and harbinger of things to come, and the return of the man himself.
The United States has been particularly vocal on this issue, expressing disappointment in the delays, while the UN Secretary-General late last week called for Machar's return to Juba without delay and without further conditions being placed on the table by either side, which could not only jeopardize the fragile peace process, but also prolong the suffering of the South Sudanese people. Sherman Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
In news from the U.S. primary elections, Republican rivals Ted Cruz and John Kasich have formed an alliance to stop Donald Trump from winning the party's nomination. They hope their coordinated strategy will allow them to jointly battle the New York businessman.
In this bitter and bruising race for the White House, teamwork is not exactly expected. But in an unusual show of solidarity, Ted Cruz and John Kasich would rather band together than see Trump triumph. That means carving up the map, allowing Cruz to campaign unchallenged by Kasich in Indiana, and in return giving Kasich a free run at New Mexico and Oregon. Wow. But this is more about maths than resources. Trump needs the magic number of 1,237, the number of delegates he needs across all the US states to win the Republican nomination outright. Failing to get there forces a contested convention, where delegates could pick any of the candidates, a scenario Cruz and Kasich are hoping for, as it could be their only ticket to the White House. Trump, never known for keeping quiet, accused his competitors of collusion and desperation. Trump is on track for another big delegate haul in Tuesday's Northeast primaries. This joint Cruz-Kasich strategy could slow him down, but it also seems to be an acknowledgement that alone, neither of them can beat Trump, and it could still be too little, too late. Tuesday's results are likely to push Trump a step closer to leading the Republicans in November's general election. Nick Arthur, SABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is hoping to sweep all 5 primary contests. However, Bernie Sanders continues to challenge and slow her progress towards the Democratic nomination to run for the White House.
Thank you all very, very much. Bernie Sanders' surprisingly successful run for the White House may end just a short distance from where it started. That short distance from Capitol Hill is Maryland, one of 5 states holding primary elections, and it's where Hillary Clinton is in the lead. But this is unlikely to be the end of his influence in the Democratic Party. Ahead of the 5 primary contests, Hillary Clinton has been trying to recast her image.
America is stronger when we are all supporting one another.
She's also been turning her attention to the upcoming general election campaign. floating ideas of who might run with her on the Democratic Party ticket, including the following senators: Sherrod Brown of Ohio, Tim Kaine of Virginia, or even another woman, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Following the votes in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland, the next challenge for the likely Democratic Party nominee, Hillary Clinton, is the fact that more American voters dislike her than like her. Priscilla Huff, SABC News, Washington.
Ahika Manor produces abstract and symbolic works of art. He called his latest collection Vote with Ink, Not Blood.
Praying for peace, literally, in my own way.
The South African film titled Luister or Listen in Afrikaans tackles issues of race in the country.
I think that the end goal is the reformation of institutional culture, but how we get there is in fact through changing the language policy so that no student is forced to learn in Afrikaans.
It's fashion designers like Julia Mpoko who are starting to pay more attention to menswear and hope to make a mark in the fashion industry.
So regardless of whether you're African, European, there's certain styles that you like. So if an African man enjoys wearing simple, well-tailored pants, then yes, I guess.
Join Refulo Mula for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Friday at 9 p.m. on Trends.
Mangaung Metro is the first municipality in the country to pilot and launch the 90-90-90 program that's aimed at achieving targets that relate to testing and treatment of HIV and TB by 2030 through various interventions. Now, the program is a multi-sectoral approach with interventions and results that will be monitored by 2020. Targets for HIV are to achieve 90% of people infected knowing their status, 90% of people living with HIV receiving treatment, and 90% of people on HIV treatment having a suppressed viral load. We now cross to Palesa Moeti in Bloemfontein, who was talking to the Executive Mayor of Mangaung Metro about the program. A very good morning to you, Palesa. And can you just give us an update before you speak to your guests as to what is happening there?
Good morning. We are outside the City Hall here at Bloemfontein in Mangaung Local Municipality, which is the metro here in the Free State. This is where Mangaung Metro will be launching the 90-90-90 program. Now, just to explain the details of this program in terms of how it's going to deal with HIV and AIDS as well as TB is the Executive Mayor of Mangaung, Mr. Thabo Manyoni. Mayor, thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much, and thanks to your viewers.
Just tell us about this 90-90-90 program. What is it really about?
The 90-90 HIV/AIDS program, it's a way of trying to fast-track the challenges faced with HIV/AIDS in our country. We are saying at least 90% of people who are infected, they should be knowing their status by 2030. And also, those who already know their status, 90% of them, they should be receiving ARVs and the necessary treatment. And those who are receiving the necessary treatment, 90% of them should have suppressed viral infection. In other words, the virus should not necessarily be affecting their immune system and so forth. So that's the vision of this program of 90-90.
So these are the targets. How will they be achieved?
To achieve this target, we will be going to targeted groups, but mainly as the mayors. We are saying mayors must lead this program so that the campaign can go into wards. We should know in each and every ward that people have been tested and 90% of them those who are tested positive are already on treatment and so forth. So we as leaders of municipalities and metros, we are supposed to lead this program and also to look into targeted and vulnerable groups. We are saying taxi ranks everywhere. People should be treated and they should also know their status, even in hotels, every place. And the vulnerable groups, of course, the unemployed and also sex workers and so forth are supposed also to be looked into and taken care of. And in that regard, we need to concentrate on those vulnerable groups and make sure that we come with programs in this regard. We will be working with NGOs and other bodies that are working with these other groups to make sure that this program really gets intensified and it really takes the center stage that it's supposed to do.
Now, this is starting in Mangaung. How did that decision come about?
You see, Mangaung is where good things for the country normally starts in. But really, after it was launched in eThekwini, I, as the mayor, I felt really we must start this fast-tracking program. And I felt that I must do it where I am the mayor, in my space, so that my colleagues can also follow in this program. You know, nowadays we all are looking for elections and so on, and we normally will forget that there are issues that we have to deal with day to day, post, pre, after elections, and these are the issues that we really have to concentrate on.
From here, obviously, is the conference in July. What does today's event, or rather this launch, mean for that conference for Mangaung?
We want, when we go to that conference as Mangaung, we should be saying we have a program, and that program has been agreed by all stakeholders and our NGOs, and it is the program that we are implementing. We want to make sure that come 2020, when we are evaluating, we should at least by that time have gone beyond the 50% mark and making sure that really we are fast-tracking this program.
Mayor, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much, and thanks to your viewers and listeners at home.
That is the Executive Mayor of Mangaung Metro, Mr. Manyoni, just reminding that, you know, whilst government is preparing for the local government elections, groundwork is still going on. Communities are still being served and they're getting the services that they deserve. With that, it's back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Palisa Moeti. That's our report today in Bloemfontein, giving you the latest there. Now, a second day of violence has broken out in Orange Farm, south of Johannesburg, over service delivery demands. Residents have blockaded the entrances and exits of the township with rocks and burning tires. Among their other demands that the local councillor steps down over accusations of corruption. Now, residents also took their protest to the N1 highway just past the Grasmere toll plaza, where they also stoned passing cars. A high police presence remain in the area. So we'll keep you updated on that story as well, so you have to stay tuned on your favorite channel of choice on Channel 404. This is Newsroom. Kendall Makhamata is up next after the break with your sports news.
One other person has been shot dead and another is in a critical condition in hospital.
The CRL has laid charges against controversial televangelist Paseka Motsoneng.
More than 1.3 million South Africans have been added in the past two registration weekends.
The International Monetary Fund warns that policy uncertainty could dampen economic growth in South Africa.
And all eyes are on the new Bok coach, Alistair Coetzee, his challenge to keep everyone in the country happy.
Good morning, welcome back. You're still watching Newsroom. I'm Kendall Makhamat and I've got your sports. Now, 14-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal has instituted legal proceedings against former French cabinet minister Roselyne Bachelot. This after Bachelot alleged that Nadal, the 14-time Grand Slam champion, failed a drug test 14-time, and that basically he's begun those legal proceedings. Now, this Roselyne Bachelot, she had alleged that the Spaniard failed a drug test in 2012. The 29-year-old issued a statement through his agent on Monday, saying that he'd filed this case for defamation against Bachelot in the Paris law courts. Bachelot was Health and Sports Minister in 2007 and 2010, and as well as Social Affairs Minister in 2012. Now, stating that through the case intends not to only defend his integrity and his image as an athlete, but also the values he's defended all his career. Former world number one Nadal, who will also attempt to win a 10th French Open this year, denies ever having taken performance-enhancing substances. He reacted angry to comments made by Bachelot, in which he said his 7-month absence from the tour and injury in 2012 was probably due to a positive doping test. At this year's Indian Wells tournament, Nadal told reporters that he was going to sue her. Now, ever since the IAAF doping scandal broke the Athletics World Championships last year, just before that, the sporting world has been on edge. Fresh from months and months of scandals in the world of FIFA, the credibility of sports has been called into question. Joining me is the Chief Executive of the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport, Khalid Galant, who's in our Sea Point, Cape Town studios. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Kendall.
Khalid, first up and foremost, we're heading towards the Olympics. We are in the process of putting together a team that's going to represent the country. And I think a lot of people are quite keen to find out what kind of protocols have been put into place to actually educate and protect these young men and women going through to Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, we have different strategies of both educating and testing the teams that are going to Rio or Team South Africa, and that team includes the athlete, the coaches, the managers, and the other entourage in the Team South Africa. They all have different responsibilities with respect to the anti-doping knowledge and regulations. So we tailor our education programs to the specific audiences, whether it's athletes, coaches, or doctors or physios.
Look, I can say this, Khalid, it's been fairly low-key because the one time I managed to see at a major tournament was at the Cape Town Sevens, where it was there was a big campaign on. It was very public about how we're going to play rugby, doping-free, it's going to be clean rugby. But having said that, at these ASA night series, for example, it's hardly been top of mind that there are doping protocols in place. What else have you been doing? Has it been that low-key that, you know, it's not, you're not pushing it that hard, or you've just been working behind the scenes?
Doping should be low-key, especially the testing part, not the education part and the awareness part. When we do doping control at events, you know, like whether it's the Sevens or the track and field series, it's a confidential process where we protect the identity of the athletes during the process. So it should be low-key. We don't advertise and post which athletes are being tested and who was tested. Again, that's the way the process unfolds. When there's a need for public disclosure, when there are issues, whether it's related to a positive test, then it will be disclosed. But the actual testing, doping control should be, and we try to keep it low-key so that athletes are not unfairly tainted by just being tested, because when the public sees, you know, if we visibly advertise who is going to be tested, there can be assumption that, oh, that athlete is being tested because we suspect that they're cheating. And that's not the case. Testing is part of the regulations of sport, and whether the athlete comes first or eighth in a track and field, they are all eligible to be tested and may be tested.
Khalid, one of the things that have come up just now, I just read a story about Rafael Nadal saying he's going to sue the former French sports minister for defamation, saying he failed a drugs test in 2012 and so on. Previously, Roger Federer had intimated that in the world of tennis, the testing protocols in his time, when he was still in his heyday, like let's say 3 years ago, 10 years ago, they weren't that high. He didn't get tested that often. he intimated. What kind of decisions get made as to which tournaments to target, which sporting codes are possibly in danger? What goes through in that thought process?
Yeah, I can't speak on behalf of international tennis and how often they are tested or the competitions. I can just speak in relation to South Africa. And in South Africa, we have risk profiles for different sports. And in terms of an anti-doping or doping risk profile. So a sport like athletics, rugby, will have a higher risk profile for doping than, say, a sport like cricket or badminton. So we factor in the risk profile and we allocate resources to that. In terms of competitions, also the level of competitions, whether it's a provincial competition, national, continental, or international, and whether participating in that competitions are going to earn athletes points or going to improve or affect their international standing. So it's quite a number of variables that we take into account when events are tested, and then athletes are also tested on an individual basis, that is the out-of-competition testing. And what informs us which athletes to test on an out-of-competition basis is their performance and then also their international standing. And then we also receive information, what we refer to as intelligence information, that points to suspicious activity, and then we will either target an event or an athlete. But again, that's the reason why it's low-key, because it's part of the investigation, and if we start broadcasting and advertising who we're testing, it can negatively affect the athlete's image and also the performance of the athlete.
No, that's understood and makes a lot of sense, Khalid. Thank you very much for that part. You've just come back from a conference, I believe, out in North America. What's the latest on meldonium? Because while you were there, we heard that WADA seemed to have staged in a massive about-face, a massive U-turn on the bannings that they were instituting left, right, and center on different athletes, mostly Russian, who tested positive for meldonium. What's happening there?
I won't say it's about turn from WADA. It's just clarifying the role of how we're going to test and how meldonium substance is going to be identified as a positive test. There were some concerns in terms of what we refer to the half-life of meldonium. If you tested after 1st of January, if you tested positive, it was on the banned list. And you will be charged with an anti-doping rule violation. What there wasn't clarity was if you had taken the substance in 2015 and how long it would have taken to be excreted out of your substance. So what WADA did is not change the fact that meldonium is banned or permitted, but they changed the concentration level in the body that above 1 micrograms, it will be declared a positive test. Below that, it won't be for the period of 1st of January 2016 to March 2016. So we're in April now, so if you test positive for meldonium, irrespective of the concentration, in April or May, it will be declared a positive test. I'm not sure if that explained it.
No, it does. It goes a long way towards actually clarifying a lot of in a lot of people's minds exactly what was going on. One of the things that's actually quite interesting is we found out in terms of the prohibited list that was published by WADA back at the beginning of October last year. Are there any drugs or any of those prohibited substances which South African athletes from any code could actually need to be wary of, that they have used in the past, that they now need to be weaning themselves off, or have weaned themselves off?
Every year the list is made available in October, but it's not in force. It only comes in force the 1st of January of the following year. We meet, especially with our top athletes in terms of Team South Africa type of athletes that go to Rio. We go through the list with them, with the athletes and with the medical doctors, so that they know what is banned and what is permitted. We also have a handbook of South African drugs with their brand name, and it's coded like red, green. Green meaning this is permitted, red meaning you're not allowed to take it, and if you do need to take it, you need to apply for a specific exemption. With respect to meldonium, when I did my research on meldonium, after the January, when it was on the list of prohibited substance, meldonium is not available in South Africa. It's not registered as any drug in South Africa. So you cannot find it in South Africa. So the risk of an athlete going to a pharmacy or doctor prescribing it for meldonium is as low in South Africa or non-existent because it's not available. But when athletes do travel, those risks do change, and they need to be familiar, especially with what ingredient or the substance that is banned. Because if you buy meldonium in Latvia, it may not say meldonium, but it may say the brand name, and that can be slightly confusing.
Mr. Khalid Galant, the CEO of South African Institute for Drug-Free Sports, thank you so much for joining us and clarifying a couple of those points.
You're welcome.
There you have it. Now, we've got it from the horse's mouth. We are being proactive, and we should be good to go to the Olympics without any drug cheats. Now, boxing development in Mdantsane will receive a welcome boost as 1 million rands worth of gym equipment is to be distributed to 57 clubs in the area. Mdantsane, just outside of East London, is an historic nursery of South African boxing talent with legends like Welcome Nita hailing from there. But boxing development in the area has gone backwards over the last 10 years. Now, the Motsepe Foundation is stepping in, re-equipping the clubs of the area. We'll now cross to our reporter, Busisiwe Jamsana, for more. Busisiwe, good morning, and thank you very much for bringing us through on Newsroom. Can you give us an idea of what is actually transpiring there?
A very good morning and welcome to Mdantsane in the Eastern Cape, the home of boxing. And I'm telling you, it's all smiles in the room, happy faces all over. And we were there last year when Petrus Motsepe announced that he'd be donating 1 million rand for development of boxing in Mdantsane. And now today they have brought equipment to make sure that they develop and they give it to different boxing places here in Mdantsane. We know that Mdantsane is known for producing world champions in boxing, such as Zolani Tete. The announcement shocked everyone, or rather surprised everyone, as Mr. Motsepe was there to hand over prosthetic legs to the mother of the former world champion, Zolani Tete. But he said that when he saw so many IBF champions, he saw so many WBF champions, so many champions coming from Mdantsane, he felt it fit to donate 1 million rands to develop boxing even further. But to tell us more about this initiative, we're joined by the General Manager of Motsepe Foundation, Usisi Unozipho Xulu. Quite an interesting initiative. We saw even kits for ladies. Tell us more about the initiative.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think the Motsepe Foundation is really humbled to be associated with this initiative of developing boxing in Mdantsane. One of the most important aspects really is to contribute to the development of sport, getting young people to be involved in boxing, and also knowing that sport really does more than just physical development of young people, but it also contributes to the social aspect of their lives. So we're really humbled by being part of this initiative, and we hope that the equipment that you have brought will actually bring much needed development in this area.
Interesting that you should say that, because we know that previously there were over 50 boxing places here in Mdantsane, and now the number has decreased to over 20. And now the foundation wants to make sure that it develops and it makes sure that those clubs are active. Will we see you monitoring to check if what you've donated is actually being put to use?
There are 57 clubs that are going to receive equipment today, and we believe that all 57 clubs are going to be actively involved in the program. We are just not giving equipment and walking away. We are going to be part and parcel of the process of getting all these clubs to actually be actively involved in boxing. We'll be monitoring very closely, and it will be nice also to come back really to see how the support that you are providing is actually benefiting especially the young people within Mdantsane, and get more of Tete and other boxers, motivated to come in and become more developed as boxers. We're really looking forward to enjoy the whole pathway that we're putting together within Mdantsane.
And certainly, I'm sure the Eastern Cape is hoping to see more of our Vajeka, but to tell us more of what this will mean to boxing here in Tanzania, we are joined by a boxing promoter, Bongani Zulu. Mr. Zulu, you are delighted to have this donation, and we know that boxing has been struggling with funding. Now that there is equipment, there is infrastructure, what will it mean for Tanzania?
Actually, what this means, firstly, let me first try and thank on behalf of the boxing community of Tanzania and thank Mr. Motsepe for life. Also the Motsepe for keeping only key thing that people of Tanzania, especially the young boys, I see the overflow of the gyms in Tanzania. Already they had the overflow, but it's going to be worse now because some of the boxing clubs that we know of that have produced Golisani and Noma Vandongeni, definitely they were depleted. They didn't have any equipment. With this equipment, it's going to go a long way for them not to move to other provinces because they're saying don't stay at home. They're going to compete on the file of other counterparts from other provinces.
And we've just seen also boxing kit for women boxing to do boxing.
It's so unfortunately that we don't have a women fight. It's so amazing. They fill up the hall. We had a tournament of only women's where we had about 32 bouts in the junior level. The hall was filled to rafters. You go to the Royal. You go to Limsan, you go to Ndevan, you go to Moy Plus, women boxing, especially here in the Buffalo City region.
Because of time, we're going to have to leave it there. Good luck in the future. That was a boxing promoter, Bongani Zulu, telling us about boxing here in Tanzania. And it looks like boxing is going to continue being, Tanzania rather, is going to continue being the mecca of boxing in the Eastern Cape. We know that only over 27 clubs were active. And now it's back to the original number 57. They'll be getting equipment. They'll be supported by the Motsepe Foundation and also the Department of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture. So from us here in Tanzania, it's back to you in studio.
Busisiwe, thank you so much. There you have it, Busisiwe Jamsana from the Eastern Cape out in Tanzania, telling us that we're about to get a fresh new boxing explosion from the original nursery of boxing in South Africa. Now going on to other sporting news, Spanish soccer giants Real Madrid are full of confidence ahead of their first leg Champions League semi-final clash against Manchester City at the Etihad tonight. Real, who beat Wolfsburg 3-2 on aggregate in the previous round, will play in their 27th league semi-final.
Real have won 9 successive La Liga games since the beginning of March, as their quest to chase down log leaders Barcelona and Atletico continues. An added boost for the Spanish team is the expected return of striker Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo was rested at the weekend while recovering from a slight hamstring injury. Real are looking forward to the clash, but know they must inflict maximum damage ahead of the second leg.
Obviously, we want to stamp our authority on the game. We want to win by as many goals as we can, but we know it's going to be a difficult game. The first legs are always a bit tense, always a bit cagey, I suppose. But I think, it will be great to score goals and have a great performance.
Meanwhile, Atletico Madrid are happy with their preparations ahead of their semi-final clash against Bayern Munich in the Spanish capital on Wednesday. Atletico have reached the Champions League last 4 twice in the last 3 years. Bayern have done so in each of the past 5 seasons. No one expects a walkover.
I hope we will play good in defense. We will stop them and score a goal, but we know that will be difficult. And that will be a hard game, tough game, 2 games. So let's see what will happen.
Atletico will have striker Fernando Torres back after a 1-match ban. Fullback Diego Godin should also be fit to play after recovering from a hamstring injury. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Tell you what, it's crunch time in the UEFA Champions League. Let's see who prevails over the next 2 legs. That's why we leave it with the sport. Time now for the weather.
Well, that's all we have for you today here on Newsroom. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow, right here. For myself, Elvis Preston.
And me, Renee Vest.
And me, Kendall Makamad.
We'll see you then. Ciao for now. Arrivederci.